It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Nosotros estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OEA y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno y lo dieron todo lo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras se aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children and they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
con la ayuda financiera de la Unión Europea.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS CIDI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. CIDI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS CIDI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. a new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the CIDI, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. CIDI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among the stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OEA y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno, y lo dieron todo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras se aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children. And they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, No podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS CIDI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. CIDI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS CIDI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the CITUR, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. CIDI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Nosotros estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se evocó creo con los de la OEA y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno y lo dieron todo lo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras se aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children. And they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Este video fue
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS CIDI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. CIDI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS CIDI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the CITUR, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. CIDI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty.
Osborne, I'm very pleased to welcome you to this virtual meeting of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, focused on science, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship to promote the inclusion of women, girls, and populations of vulnerable situations. I extend a special welcome to member state representatives who are joining us virtually, as well as our specially invited guests. Ms. Shelley Brunswick, Chief Operating Officer, Space Foundation, United States. Ms. Savage, Assistant Professor and Director of Civic AI Lab, Northeastern University, Horry College of Computer Sciences, Boston, Massachusetts, and co-director of the UNAM Civic Innovation Lab in Mexico. Ms. Venice Zimmer, founder and president of Isel Bank, Brazil. Thank you for accepting our invitation to participate in today's deliberations. I'm advised by the Executive Secretary that we have the required quorum. I'll ask her to list the delegations in alphabetical order. The Secretariat will take note of other delegations as they join. Secretary Osborne, please read out the list of delegations present.
Thank you, Ambassador, and good afternoon, distinguished representatives. We have Bahamas, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Costa Rica, Ecuador, El Salvador, the United States, Grenada, Guatemala, Guyana, Honduras, Jamaica, Mexico, Panama, Peru, República Dominicana, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Secretary Osborne. The required quorum is established and we can proceed with today's meeting. I now submit for consideration of CIDI direction order of business approved. Item 2. We'll now begin a dialogue on the substantive topic for this meeting on science, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship to promote inclusion of women, girls, and populations in vulnerable situations. Clearly, this topic is very close to my heart. Innovation and entrepreneurship and inclusion of women. So, colleagues, distinguished guests, it is well documented that the COVID-19 pandemic has deepened existing inequalities and widened technology and social gaps because of limited access of segments of society to the skills and tools necessary for participation in the digital economy. According to the Global Gender Gap Index of the World Economic Forum, the COVID-19 pandemic has increased the estimated time to close the gender gap in the world by 36 years. The WEF report indicates that the pandemic and ensuing economic activity restrictions and losses have impacted women more severely than men. Lower income households and disadvantaged communities have faced more financial, health, learning, social, and emotional hardship and uncertainties. Job losses have been particularly pronounced among minorities and working mothers. Across the developing world in particular, women have borne the brunt of the pandemic challenges in a disappropriate percentage. Initial projections from the International Labour Organization suggest 5% of all employed women lost their jobs. Furthermore, the over-reliance on women to double shift with duties to care for children increased job security and complicated maintaining work-life balance. And there's also the persistent gender gap in leadership roles, with women representing just 27% of all managerial level positions. The acceleration of the digital economy and e-commerce reinforce the need to develop skills and training in the innovation-driven sectors, as these sectors have the potential to create opportunities aligned with the jobs of the future and to contribute to greater economic autonomy, especially for women. Advancing concrete, actionable initiatives to improve access and leadership of women and communities with limited opportunities to follow STEM education, science and innovation careers, are needed to address some of the existing workforce inequalities affecting economic mobility and gender equality in the fields of science and technology in the Americas. Within the context of the Inter-American Committee on Science and Technology, COMSIT, OS member states have identified the importance of pursuing deliberate policies and programs to address existing gaps and inequalities affecting part of the population and communities. Today's dialogue will offer member states the opportunity to discuss actionable priorities to advance regional collaboration to address the gender and inclusion gaps on innovation, science, technology, and entrepreneurship in the Americas. This session will explore results-driven interventions to improve access to science, innovation, and technology, to improve the economic and social situation of women and populations in vulnerable situations. Colleagues, as agreed on the methodology of the CIDI meetings, will first engage in a dialogue with our invited experts who will respond to specific questions from member states. Following this dialogue, member states will be invited to share their country's experiences, ideas for cooperation, and specific contributions related to the topic. It's now my pleasure to begin the conversation, and I'm pleased to give the floor to Ms. Shelley Brunswick, Chief Operating Officer of the Space Foundation of the United States. Ms. Brunswick, thank you for joining us. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador Marks. It's an honor to be joining you, as well as Executive Secretary Osborne, distinguished guest, as well as other representatives from countries. I'm honored to share with you about the Space Foundation and our programs that we offer to help address many of the challenges that you're discussing today. I'm going to bring up my slides for you. Maybe I'm not. I'll give that one more try.
Yeah, you have to, Ms. Brunswick, you have your presentation already open?
I did have it open. We'll give it one more try. It seems that that is just always how it goes, isn't it? There we go. We're going to try one more time. I apologize. Technology is wonderful when it works perfectly. Okay. Do you now see my slides?
Yes, we do.
Now,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay. There you go.
Now I will share that I cannot see you, so my goal will be to just cover the slides and then pause because I'd rather be open to dialogue. But at the Space Foundation, there is a place for everyone in the global space ecosystem. We believe that advocating for innovation betters our life here on Earth. And we do have three main divisions at Space Foundation. So you can think of us as your trusted source for information, education, and collaboration under our three divisions. Under our Symposium 365, that's where we bring together the global space leaders, whether it's military, academia, industry, and international partners, to talk about the future of the space industry. And we do that through events that are both in person as well as virtual. Under our Global Alliance division, that is our partnership area. That's our government affairs and international affairs activities, and where we look to partner and collaborate. And then the part that I'm really going to focus on today is our Center for Innovation and Education, which is about a lifelong learning platform that allows workforce development and economic opportunity for all students, teachers, entrepreneurs, and professionals to come in to the space ecosystem. What I'd like to do is define what is that space ecosystem and why is it so important to all of us. In 2020, the Space Foundation said the global space economy was $447 billion, and it's projected to grow to over $1 trillion by 2030 and over $3 trillion by 2040. And there are three types of nations that are part of the space ecosystem. There are nations that already operate in space, and there's more than 85 of those. There are nations that want to operate in space, and then there are nations that want to harness space technology to better the lives for their citizens. So in essence, every nation and every citizen is part of the global space economy. In the US, we have done comparisons of STEM professional careers, both in the space industry and not in the industry of space, but other industries. Same skill set, same degrees. And the individuals that are in the space industry have higher salaries. The great part about the global space economy is that 80% is commercial, which means it's all about entrepreneurship and innovation. It's about products and services. It's about economic growth. So when we look at what are those technology trends that relate to the space ecosystem, in essence, it's every technology you think about today. It's artificial intelligence and virtual reality. It's telecommunications. It's healthcare and biometrics. It's data analytics. It's manufacturing. It's drone technology and more. So when you're thinking about space technology and how it impacts your community, your citizens, your ecosystem, it's actually interdispersed within all technologies. A great place that you can look at to verify those great technologies that are there is the NASA Technology Transfer Office. NASA has thousands of patents that are waiting to be commercialized from the space industry that they've discovered as the US government, and they're available to be commercialized and brought to market as products and services, whether it's in agriculture or healthcare or transportation, energy and energy storage solutions. Another organization, not part of the Americas, but I will share, is the European Space Agency. They also have thousands of patents that are waiting to be commercialized. So what is this space technology that's benefiting us every day? Well, we are talking right now using space technology and cybersecurity. Video conferencing and telecommunications would not be possible without space technology. Your cell phone has 3 different types of space technology: cordless power tools, weather prediction, formulated food, fire retardant clothing that firefighters wear, all came from space technology. And as we continue to develop, the things that we're learning about going back to the moon and on to Mars are only going to come back and benefit us here on Earth with great entrepreneurs developing that technology, commercializing it, and bringing it so that all of us can benefit. Again, this is a picture of that global space economy from 2020. As I shared, $447 billion. But the bigger part again is that 80%, the blue and the red, represent commercial, represent entrepreneurship and innovation and jobs and economic development, because those are products and services that are being developed and delivered. The part that I also want to highlight is 50 years ago, space was primarily a few nations, primarily male, primarily government-focused industries. Now that pendulum has swung to where it's democratized. Now we need all workers in the space ecosystem. We definitely still need science, technology, engineering, and mathematic professionals, but we also need those entrepreneurs and project workers, project managers, the technical skills in the supply chain. We've seen during COVID how devastating our supply chains have been impacted during COVID. We need those trade workers. We also are looking, as that technology is coming on so quickly, we're going to have to become lifelong learners. We no longer go and learn a skill set or go and get a degree, but we need to continue to develop our skills as technology evolves and changes all our jobs. For instance, a year ago, 18 months ago, I would have never had a meeting like this virtually. I would have come in person. We would have all met in person. But COVID has demonstrated that we're learning new skills all the time that make our lives better. And this is a great example of that. By democratizing space, we now are opening the opportunities to minorities, women, retirees, but it's also not just in the US, it's around the world. Different regions of the world are now able to benefit from that space ecosystem. There are some challenges. We do have a workforce shortage. The US, Europe, Japan have a workforce shortage with an aging demographic without a workforce coming in to fill those jobs. We do see that skills mismatch. So although some individuals may be looking for a job in the space industry, and there are jobs in the space industry, they may have a skills mismatch. And that could mean an internship, a college degree, a certificate. And then again, we're looking at that innovation gap, that entrepreneurship, that ability to unlock all that technology that's waiting to be commercialized and brought to market. That's why the Space Foundation has our Center for Innovation and Education. It's all about creating that workforce development and economic opportunity so all citizens, students, teachers, entrepreneurs, and professionals can be part of that global space ecosystem. So at Space Foundation, we're looking at the current workforce. How are they reskilling and upskilling into new jobs and opportunities? And we're looking at the future workforce. How do we get space-inspired curriculum into the schools so that kids understand not just what we did with space 50 years ago or memorizing planets, but that space is about careers and opportunities. The Space Foundation is a U.S. nonprofit. We do business internationally. We do that through partnerships, sponsorships, grants, fundraising, donations, and endowments. And we do have a workforce development roadmap that we follow for all our programs that show individuals how they can come into the space industry. It's about awareness, access, training, connecting, and mentoring. And this will be my last slide that I just highlight. This is how the Space Foundation does our business. You are on that dot that says Space Foundation in the very center of this graph. As you look out at the next circle, we want to look at who is your audience you want to reach. Is it teachers? Let's say it's teachers. Then we look out at what is a measure of success for reaching those teachers. Is it teaching them all about space-inspired curriculum so they can bring that into the classroom and inspire kids to pursue those space and STEM jobs? If that's our target audience and our goal and objective, we then look at the outer ring and we look at all the programs the Space Foundation offers. And in this case, we do have an international teacher liaison program. On the outer part of this slide are the 16 different sectors that the Space Foundation considers to be part of the space ecosystem. So you certainly see the component that is space, and that would be astronauts and launch vehicles. But it's also agriculture and energy and environmental monitoring, finance, the Internet of Things, and manufacturing. So when you think about space, you can think about how it's already interdispersed in everything we do every day. So with this, I'd like to stop my formal presentation and answer any questions or allow the next speakers to present, and I will wait and be happy to answer questions as necessary. Again, thank you, Ambassador and Executive Secretary, for giving myself and the Space Foundation an opportunity to share what we love to do every day.
Thank you, Ms. Brunswick. I think the chair is having a little bit of technical difficulties, so just give her 1 minute to reconnect. Thank you so much.
There we go. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation. Very interesting. So much, there are diverse and enormous opportunities. So we look forward to continuing the conversation after the other presentations. I now invite Ms. Savage, Assistant Professor and Director of Civic AI Lab of the Northeastern University, Corey College of Computer Sciences, and Co-Director of the UNAM Civic Innovation Lab in Mexico to take the floor. Ms. Savage, thank you for joining us. You have the floor.
Hi, thank you very much. It's a true honor to be here. Thank you very much to Cesar Braga, who invited me, and I'm very thrilled and excited to be here. I'm going to start, and thank you all. I'm very excited to meet you. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So, do you guys see my screen well?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you all very much. So I'm Dr. Savage. I'm currently working at Northeastern University, but I also collaborate with the National Autonomous University of Mexico, UNAM, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about what we have been doing in order to power inclusive AI and innovation, especially within the context of Latin America and the Caribbean. So a question I'm very passionate about is thinking, how might we power inclusive innovation in Latin America and the Caribbean? I argue that in order to accomplish this, we need to, on one hand, understand what are the needs and values of the different stakeholders who are involved within different countries. And we can also use philosophy theories, especially social justice frameworks, to help us to better understand what are the social problems that these different populations are facing. And we can then design technology that is able to address the systematic problems that these populations might be facing. And these types of technologies might look like, for instance, we're going to be using deep learning in order to identify when we have unjust situations happening with workers, or we're going to be using reinforcement learning in order to guide workers to develop their skills and access better jobs. In today's talk, I'm going to be presenting to you a series of examples where I'm using this framework in order to bring innovation into Latin America and address systematic problems that Latin America and the Caribbean are facing. So the first example that I'm going to present is on using data analytics and AI to help government workers better address and support domestic violence victims. So I've been working with the United Nations Accelerator Lab in Mexico and also Mexico City's Ministry of Women. It turns out that they have a center where government workers are supporting women who are experiencing domestic violence, up to the point where some of them could potentially be murdered. So it's extremely important that these government workers are able to act fast and be able to identify when a victim is in danger, is in extreme danger. The problem that we found, and again, I used my framework in order to understand the problem, was that government workers had a hard time visualizing exactly all of the support that they were giving to the women. And then also government workers themselves were exposed to constant trauma. And so we designed these data visualizations where we help government workers be able to rapidly understand what is going on with the victims that they are giving assistance to, so that they can better identify to which victims they need to act fast, to which victims they should change the type of support that they're giving them because the support might not be working. And also we provide interfaces that help support government workers because they are exposed to constant trauma. And so we're leveraging these different interfaces where we're combining AI and big data in order to better support the government workers in Mexico City. And we're also helping them to develop digital skills. This is also extremely important when we're thinking about working with the government. Now, another type of project that I want to share is we have also been designing for rural communities in Mexico. What we are doing here is, again, we use the framework. We identified that most rural communities have women because the men leave for the city. And so we designed technology that focused on some of the activities that were extremely important for women living in these rural towns, which focused around developing tools for preparing food. And we prepared this technology in ways in which women themselves could modify them, given that they might not have maybe as much strength to carry, for instance, very heavy equipment. Some of the things that we did was that we ensured that this equipment was built with clay. This allows women to be able to easily modify the devices. We also made it into a collaborative activity. Collaboration was important because women would not adopt the technology if it was not something that they had built together with their hometowns. And so we turned the technology into a collaborative activity that everyone in the town could participate. I've also been developing technology through which I use AI, specifically reinforcement learning, to guide workers to develop their digital skills. And I've been testing this within the context of rural communities so that displaced rural workers can access higher paying jobs and then get back into the workforce. I've also been working closely with different federal and local governments in order to enable AI within the government and allow the government to deliver better services. I'm working currently with Mexico's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and here we're studying what type of AI technology can be best supported within the federal government. One of the things that we have been developing are virtual assistants. The virtual assistants have been designed using culture theory to understand what type of characteristics the intelligent virtual assistants should adopt in order to be more approachable to citizens in Mexico. Additionally, these virtual assistants are also helping government workers to be able to delegate tasks that are boring for them so that they can focus on more complex tasks. Additionally, I've been focused on building public computational infrastructure with the federal government. This is extremely important given that if you want innovation, you have to also think about how you can technically support academics, NGOs, the government themselves, because if not, it's only large technology companies who will be able to have access to the innovation. So I think that it's critical that you also think about public computational infrastructure. And finally, I've been also pushing forward a whole network of Latinas in tech, and we're building here community where we're doing a lot of outreach events in order to power the next generation of future Latinas. If you're interested in this, please email me and I'll involve you in the community. Here we had a large-scale hackathon with Google. And so overall, what can you do? I would argue that think about how you can use these types of interviews to really understand what are the needs that Latin America has, Latin America and the Caribbean, and you can adapt the technology, design new technology for these regions. I think that right now there's a huge opportunity to design, especially for Latin America and the Caribbean, given that a lot of technology has been developed for the global. And well, thank you all very much. It was such a pleasure to be here. And here's my contact information.
Thank you, Ms. Savage, for that very insightful and interesting presentation. Look forward to continued conversation with you after.
Thank you.
I'm now pleased to invite Ms. Venice Zimmer, founder and president of Ilas Bank in Brazil. Ms. Zimmer, thank you for joining us. You have the floor.
Doctora Zimmer. Oh, bien, gracias.
Olá, boa tarde a todos. Obrigada pela presença, pelo convite. Obrigada, embaixadora. Obrigada, secretária executiva. Obrigada a todos os participantes pela oportunidade. Vou compartilhar com vocês aqui a minha tela. Muito bem. Então, hoje eu vou falar para vocês um pouquinho sobre a Ilas Bank, que é uma empresa, um banco digital feito com o propósito de inclusão financeira de gênero. É um ecossistema feito por mulheres para mulheres. Gostaria de focar aqui na desproporção dos gaps de gênero em finanças no mundo, né? São dados do Banco Mundial. Hoje o gap de gênero é da proporção de 1,7 trilhões de dólares globalmente, afeta as mulheres principalmente no pagamento, na promoção do trabalho, no trabalho não remunerado em casa, cuidado com crianças, idosos, nas pausas no trabalho durante a maternidade, ou para cuidado dos filhos, ou para outras atividades de casa, na aposentadoria e na concessão de crédito. Nós acreditamos que os gaps de gênero criam dependência social, reforçam a violência doméstica, aumentam a miséria das mulheres, reforçam as regras estrito sensu de gênero e aumentam as barreiras de acesso às finanças. No Brasil, vocês podem ver especificamente a situação do gap de gênero. Nós temos uma desproporção aqui no salário médio de mulheres e homens, é uma diferença de 22% aqui, o gap de gênero de pagamento, de aposentadoria 17%, o trabalho doméstico e o trabalho não pago em casa é 95% gap de gênero, o desemprego, o gap de gênero varia de 4% a 5%, sendo maior entre as mulheres que são donas de família, e os gaps de gênero aqui também nos cargos de direção, nos postos mais elevados, ele existe, tendo sido acirrado ainda mais na pandemia, passando de 24% para 26%. Aqui, o ensino superior é onde tem a maior, os trabalhadores com ensino superior é onde há a maior gap, 38% de gap aqui entre as pessoas que estão com funções ativas em nível superior, tá? Então, essa é a situação do Brasil e como é que nós podemos mudar essa situação? Primeiramente, nós hoje, aqui na América Latina, nós temos uma ótima situação, nós temos uma boa expansão, né, do uso de celulares. 87% das mulheres são proprietárias de celulares na América Latina e Caribe, com apenas 1% de gap de posse de celulares aqui no país. Isso significa que nós podemos criar e disponibilizar serviços bancários online para toda a região com muita facilidade. Basta ter o sinal. Então, nós, como tem acesso e como tem uso, isso significa que as pessoas estão sendo servidas e nós ainda podemos melhorar esse índice aqui, de forma que toda a população da América Latina tenha acesso a um banco digital, a uma conta digital, reduzindo, assim, o gap financeiro sistematicamente, né? Aqui vocês veem o que aconteceu durante a pandemia, levando a uma inserção das pessoas nos bancos online, com as transações bancárias subindo para 52% de todas as transações sendo realizadas via banco, principalmente as transações de pagamento, de acesso a crédito. Nós assistimos uma entrada da classe C, D, E nos sistemas bancários através do mobile banking, com um acréscimo de 22% de participação, de 21% de participação, o que levou a uma queda na desbancarização, ou seja, na exclusão bancária de pessoas, em 8 pontos percentuais. Então, o que a gente tem que pensar sobre isso? Que se considerar a população economicamente ativa no Brasil, vou pegar o caso do Brasil, né, essa inclusão ela pode levar a uma otimização da atividade de investimento, porque se a gente considerar que a população ativa, dessa população ativa de 103 milhões, nós temos 41% de homens investindo e apenas 18% de mulheres investindo, e analisando o padrão de investimento das mulheres, que é consistentemente investir em poupança, mas não nos ativos mais rentáveis, que trariam maior lucratividade e uma melhora na sua condição financeira, há algo a ser feito aqui. E o que a Elas Bank está fazendo? A Elas Bank tem trabalhado com 3 classes de mulheres. As que não investem e que não investem e não guardam dinheiro de forma nenhuma, oferecendo o Open Bank, um sistema de banco aberto, conectando todas as contas que essas mulheres possam ter em diferentes bancos para que elas enxerguem o uso dos seus recursos, oferecendo um instrumento de orçamento tecnológico, né, orçamento automatizado através do Robo-Advisor, oferecendo o planejamento financeiro através do Robo-Advisor e o investimento automatizado através do Robo-Advisor. Isso tem sido oferecido para quem não investe e não poupa, no sentido de melhorar, otimizar o seu uso do sistema financeiro. Tem sido oferecido para as mulheres que só guardam, no sentido de incentivá-las a investir. E tem sido oferecido para as mulheres que já investem. As mulheres que já investem buscam também investimentos temáticos. E se eles existissem, 77% dessas mulheres considerariam que investiriam mais. 79% de todas as mulheres estariam dispostas a fazer um planejamento financeiro se tivessem à sua disposição o mecanismo de automação para fazer o planejamento financeiro automatizado dentro de um sistema bancário, que hoje não tem no Brasil. Elas veem que é o primeiro a oferecer esse serviço, né? E o nosso desafio é oferecer essas soluções que são possíveis para o mercado, criando aí contas bancárias de baixo custo, com uma visão de 360 graus, no sentido de que mulheres conseguem ver a sua conta bancária no banco A, B, C, D, quanto está sendo descontado, quanto elas estão sacando, qual a movimentação bancária, e fazendo com que isso crie um padrão de planejamento financeiro a ser utilizado pelo nosso Robo-Advisor para criar soluções financeiras para essas mulheres. Então, os investimentos temáticos têm acelerado o investimento que as mulheres fazem, porque elas passam a investir em temas como de sustentabilidade, como preservação do meio ambiente, equidade financeira de gênero e outros temas de sustentabilidade. Então, aqui você vê todo o ecossistema da Elas Bank, que consiste em oferecer contas bancárias de baixo custo, planejamento financeiro integrado com com modelos de investimento robotizados, e estamos aqui na segunda fase, que é a construção do lending, para mulheres emprestarem dinheiro para as mulheres, já cruzando com a Europa, onde nós vamos captar recursos das mulheres europeias para emprestar para as mulheres brasileiras. E aqui a terceira fase e última fase, que seria a construção do nosso e-commerce, com produtos vendidos de mulheres para mulheres, a baixo custo, sem taxa PIN. E aqui vocês vão ver como é que nós construímos esse banco, criando um modelo bastante atrativo, dinâmico, lúdico, que não exige um conhecimento sistemático de finanças, que permite que qualquer mulher de qualquer classe social, em qualquer condição de formação e conhecimento, possa usar a conta, ter acesso a crédito e fazer investimentos. E assim nós cumprimos a nossa meta inicial, que era a proposta do banco, que era tornar os investimentos mais simples do que fazer uma receita de bolo. E aqui eu encerro a minha apresentação. Eu espero que estou aberta aí para voltar aqui, encerrar. Estou aberta a responder perguntas, a oferecer a vocês toda a classe de iluminação em relação a esse procedimento. Obrigada a todos.
Thank you, Ms. Zimmer. I'm sure we will have questions for your very innovative solution for women, a digital bank for women. Thank you all. I'd like to now invite each of our guests to please turn, well, you have done so, turn your cameras on so we can begin the dialogue. I'll start first with you, Ms. Shelley Brunswick. How can the Center for Innovation and Education and the Space Foundation collaborate with our governments and partners to expand experiential learning in STEM and inclusive entrepreneurial opportunities in top innovation sectors for our countries? Please. That's a long question. I think I should break it down a bit. Is it clear on it, on that question? Okay, great.
Well, thank you. That's a wonderful opportunity, and I will share the Space Foundation. We have been in business since 1983, and although we are located in the United States, we do business internationally, and we do partner with governments around the world. For instance, we've just completed a program with the United Arab Emirates Space Agency. We have other programs going on in other parts of the world. So we do business internationally, and some of the programs that you're looking at, so you didn't describe if it was adult workforce or primary school, but I'll talk about both. Through our Center for Innovation and Education, we look at both entrepreneurship. So do we want to partner with universities or other organizations and countries to bring our Space Commerce Institute activities to your community? And that's about teaching entrepreneurship. What are those space innovation opportunities, and how do we create more entrepreneurship and innovation globally? And that's critical, and especially with today's focus on women, when we unlock women's innovation and entrepreneurship, we help raise many, and that includes their families and communities with them. So we look at both entrepreneurship at the adult level. We then look at the other side, which is the primary school. So K through 12 and teaching teachers. And we have programs in both. One of the things that we've done at Space Foundation is we do have space and STEM inspired curriculum that can be brought into the classroom. What we've learned through our research is if you do programs outside of the classroom, it can be very challenging for all students to participate. Maybe their school doesn't have after-school programs. Maybe they have to go home and take care of family chores or other family members. Maybe they have a single parent. So it's really important that the curriculum is part of the normal day-to-day school year. So we have that for all grade levels, and it's really important to reach younger children, elementary school, junior high school, because that's when kids are formulating career path and ideas. And then we also have programs because we want to make sure the parents and communities understand the importance of space, because many times there is a perception that space is not for us. Space is about astronauts and rocket scientists, and that's not for us. That's not for us in our country or our community or what we do. And our goal is to come in, break down that misperception that space is not for us with families, with community leaders, and have those discussions about this is how you can create a future pathway for your children, but also your community. And then we also look at teaching teachers, because when we can reach teachers, teachers have the ability to bring that curriculum and those tools into the classroom every day and impact students and their future. So we want to give teachers the tools that they need to be able to move academia in the direction of these great opportunities. And again, it's not one size fits all, because every country and every community is different. Where are you? Are you operating in space? So there are many American countries in the Americas that are operating in space. Some want to operate in space, and some will utilize space technology. So there could be different ideas for how we work with your communities. So that's kind of a long answer to a long question, but I do want to share, Ambassador and Excellence Executive Secretary, that we want to work. If individuals are interested, it's not a one size fits all. We need to sit down, understand who you're trying to reach, what are the goals and objectives, and then how do we create a plan that meets those goals and objectives over time. And we want to build a relationship with you and be your partner. So I'll pause there. Thank you so much. I'm honored again to be joining you today.
Thank you for that very comprehensive answer. And I'll come back to you with just one more question. But first, let me ask Dr. Savage, what is needed from our governments and stakeholders to access and leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning tools to improve inclusion and allow youth, women, and underserved communities to use and benefit from such transformative?
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Wonderful question, and very actually thought-provoking. I think that what is key is to enable more collaborations between government, academia, NGOs, and also industry partners. So academia can facilitate and help the government to be able to understand these new technologies and how these new technologies can feed into their pipelines and how they might be able to innovate. NGOs can also help governments in order to connect with different marginalized communities in order to use and implement these technologies with communities that would benefit the most from having these technologies in their hands. And then the industry partners can provide even more computational infrastructure and support to be able to deploy these technologies at scale. And so I think it's key to have ecosystems where these different stakeholders are working together.
Yes, thank you. Very clear answer. Thank you. Ms.
Thank
Zimmer,
you.
I have the question. The question that was prepared for us to discuss today. But before I ask that question, let me ask you, how many members do you have at Illes Bank? How many women have opened the accounts?
Bom, hoje nós somos um grupo de 18 especialistas, muitos deles com doutorado em suas áreas de saber. São pessoas com muito conhecimento especializado, né? Gente com conhecimento na área de diversidade, gênero, estudo de gênero, gente com conhecimento na área de ciências artificiais, especialistas em finanças, todos com mais de 20, 30 anos de experiência de mercado, ou experiência universitária, né? Na área acadêmica, com pesquisa e tecnologia. E nós formamos um grupo seleto, um grupo que trabalha duramente aqui pela questão democrática, pela democratização das finanças e o acesso dessas finanças às mulheres de todo o país, né?
Yes, so yes. So just about how many women are utilizing your services? or have opened accounts?
Bom, o número estimado são 50 mil mulheres acessando o sistema da Elas Bank para investir. Nós acabamos de lançar a conta, né? A conta tem menos de 6 meses, ela acaba de ser otimizada para passar por uma revisão na parte de usabilidade, para tornar o acesso mais lúdico, mais atrativo, e que as pessoas se sintam representadas em termos de identidade dentro deste banco, né? Nós ainda temos muitas áreas em desenvolvimento, que é a plataforma de educação financeira, que vai operar paralelamente à plataforma de finanças, criando uma coesão entre o movimento de mulheres do Brasil todo na educação financeira de outras mulheres. Esse mesmo movimento faz a coesão para a oferta do peer-to-peer, que é o crédito de mulheres para mulheres, são mulheres emprestando para mulheres, especialmente com foco nas microempreendedoras, no desenvolvimento também na formação, também de ciência e tecnologia. Nós temos alguns projetos de desenvolvimento em STEAM, formação de meninas, mentoramento para meninas que desejam desenvolver e conhecer mais sobre finanças e tecnologia. Esse cruzamento das duas áreas de finanças e inteligência artificial é uma coisa muito recente. Um robô do porte da Elas Bank, só existem 3 no mundo, né? Então, assim, na verdade, o que a gente está fazendo é usar a inteligência artificial, é o grande salto da Elas Bank, é disponibilizar um robô de investimento automatizado, capaz de triar todas as suas características individuais e personalizar esse investimento e permitir que você fique tranquila e se sinta segura para investir e aprenda que este é o seu lugar. Então, a gente trabalha com a questão da representação social de gênero, fazendo as pessoas entenderem o valor, entenderem a possibilidade e criamos dispositivos que tornam isso possível, permitindo que elas tenham acesso a esse sistema de investimento de uma forma muito fácil. Apenas clicando em alguns botões, elas são capazes de investir e elas têm um monitoramento automatizado que dá para elas segurança, confiabilidade. Alô? Pois não? E a sensação de que estão...
with potential partners outside of Brazil who would want to offer this innovative solution to their countries, in other countries.
Bom, a plataforma já é muito boa. Nós acabamos de ser selecionados pela Embaixada do Brasil em Berlim para sermos acelerados pela Tech Quartier, mas acredito que outros desenvolvedores do mundo que tenham interesse em fazer esse trabalho mais social, em implementar e difundir o uso deste sistema, inclusive para o modelo educacional. No Brasil acaba de implantar a educação financeira nas escolas, o governo brasileiro acaba de criar um programa de educação financeira, treinando professores. Eu acredito que se este modelo puder ser disponibilizado em uma plataforma educacional para ensinar as pessoas a investirem, da mesma forma que você aprende a usar o Word, o Excel, e você puder ter uma plataforma de educação, eu acredito que todos os representantes de ciência e tecnologia de qualquer país das Américas poderá contribuir com a gente, tanto com conhecimento, quanto com troca de informações, quanto com o desenvolvimento de sistemas mais apurados. É que, na verdade, esse sistema da Elas Bank, ele tem 20 anos de teste de mercado, então ele faz uma previsão muito apurada. Nós fizemos uma encomenda de avaliação de outros robôs no mundo inteiro, e foi feita por pessoas do MIT, e que não encontraram, só encontraram 2 outros robôs com o potencial de previsão que o nosso robô tem hoje. Então, o que eu acho que a gente tem que fazer, que a gente poderia fazer, porque nós somos uma empresa, é usar este conhecimento para disponibilizar. Isso. Muito bem, muito obrigada.
Thank you, Zimmer. Ms. Brunswick, just the final question for me. Can we build regional value chains, linking capabilities and promoting engagement from all the countries of the Americas in space and related industries?
Absolutely. What the Space Foundation promotes is that global space economy, the ecosystem of how we are interdependent and can work together. So we can absolutely do that. And we'd be happy to talk with individuals that might be interested in partnering with us on starting those discussions and starting to figure out what is the right way forward. A month ago, I will share, we did have a discussion with the Pan American Development Foundation as well. So I think we all share some common interests in creating access and opportunities for all citizens here in the Americas, but as well as around the world. And space is a great opportunity for everyone to benefit. And I do again want to thank you, Ambassador and Executive Secretary, for inviting Space Foundation and myself to join you and your distinguished colleagues.
It is certainly our pleasure so far to be having this dialogue with you. I will now ask Dr. Savage, what kind of collaboration programs do you envision the OAS can undertake with the AI labs you are leading to respond to the urgent development needs in the Americas that have been heightened by the pandemic?
I think that some of, thank you very much, Ambassador. Also, very fascinating question again. I think that some of the key issues to address right now after the pandemic is, on one hand, empowering skill development. There are a number of jobs that, because of the pandemic, have suddenly disappeared. And so we really need to help individuals throughout America be able to develop the skills that they need in order to access new types of jobs. And I think the pandemic has forced a number of us to have to develop new digital skills, which is great. But there is still a long way to go in order to empower these individuals to access new types of jobs. So I think that one of the key things that the Organization of American States can do is to unite forces with, for instance, different research labs, including mine at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, UNAM, and Northeastern University, in order to start to deploy and connect academics with governments to start to help them have access to these new technologies and start to see how together we can help these workforces to power a better future for them.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Savage.
Thank you.
I will now invite the member states to ask questions of our expert panel. We will start with Brazil. Will have the floor.
Oh, we can hear you, sir. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do now.
Obrigado. Gostaria de agradecer à senhora presidente, ao secretariado pela organização desse diálogo. Queria também felicitá-las pela escolha das palestrantes. Muito positivo podermos ver 5 mulheres, né, fazendo uma apresentação aqui na nossa tela, e todas com experiências muito valiosas para serem compartilhadas aqui para nós. Ainda mais quando uma delas é do Brasil e representa um setor com tanto potencial de crescimento e de inclusão, né, como a doutora Zimmer demonstrou na apresentação dela. Eu gostaria de perguntar justamente à doutora Vanessa Zimmer como que o Elas Bank tem mapeado para alcançar, tem buscado mapear as potenciais usuárias, né, clientes, que necessitam do serviço, considerando que o Brasil é um país tão grande territorialmente, né, e tão diverso. Enfim, queria entender um pouco melhor como é que vocês têm procurado chegar na ponta, né, nos potenciais clientes. E também aproveitar para fazer também perguntar qual é o mecanismo de identificação também não só dos potenciais usuários das contas, né, mas também dos investidores nesse mecanismo peer-to-peer, que realmente é uma novidade bastante promissora no fintech atualmente. Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigada a todos, obrigado, Ciro Leal, pela pergunta. Bom, a Elas Bank, ela trabalhou durante quase 2 anos fazendo esse mapeamento, né, das classes C, D, E, da classe AB, dos usos dos serviços, quais os tipos de serviços mais usados e quais as necessidades de cada uma dessas classes, né? Então, de uma maneira mais atual, a gente acessa principalmente via internet, através de vários canais de mídias sociais. Os grupos de mulheres vão acessando o banco a partir de e-mail marketing, através dos nossos posts de formação educativa, tanto no LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Hoje a massa de brasileiros, 84% da população brasileira acessa Facebook pelo menos 4 vezes ao dia. Então, a melhor forma de acessar as mulheres hoje é através das mídias sociais. E é aí que a gente está fazendo esse trabalho. Mas fora isso, a gente fez um mapeamento dos movimentos de mulheres no Brasil, quais são os grupos, quem atua em qual área, mulheres do agronegócio, mulheres do mobiliário, rede de mulheres empreendedora, B2Mami, e uma diversidade de mulheres atuando, mulheres do seguro, mulheres atuando na prevenção contra a violência, mulheres atuando na formação, na mentoria de carreiras, e nós vamos buscando esses grupos e pedindo que eles promovam a nossa inserção, para que a gente faça uma colaboração de parceria com esses movimentos de mulheres, tanto recebendo quanto doando, né? Elas fazem parte da Elas Bank também. Nós temos uma página que ainda não está no ar, mas é uma página de parceiros, onde os parceiros sobem vídeos de formação financeira para mulheres. Então, a gente não tem intenção de ser uma empresa somente. Nós queremos ser muito mais que isso. Nós estamos buscando ser um ecossistema de formação financeira para mulheres, e, inclusive, pensando na questão da automação como a melhor forma de desenvolvimento tecnológico do uso do sistema financeiro no Brasil hoje, né? Então, a gente se coloca desta maneira. Nós somos mais do que uma empresa de finanças, nós somos um movimento de popularização financeira da economia, né, do sistema financeiro e da economia financeira para as mulheres. Muito agradeço.
Thank you for your question, delegation of Brazil, and the answers. We now recognize the delegation of the United States.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank the panelists so much for their excellent presentations. And this is just really exciting to hear specific examples of women in STEM and ways that we can engage women on these digital platforms. It's something that the United States is passionate and excited about. So it's great to have you all with us today. I have so many questions, but I want to be mindful of the fact that we have others who certainly have the same kind of enthusiasm as we do. So I'll focus on one question, and I wanted to direct this to Ms. Brunswick, if you wouldn't mind. My question is, given the rapid growth of the space economy and no doubt the influence that it's going to have in the future, what steps would you recommend or have been thinking about that governments can take to help vulnerable populations or those that have been excluded from STEM-related spaces? How can we help them also enjoy the benefits of this rapidly growing industry? And I know you mentioned, for example, NASA's Technology Transfer Bank as a way that entrepreneurs can jump in and take on that initiative. But if you had other concrete thoughts that we as governments, as we're thinking about these issues, recommendations that we could consider, that would be much appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And that is a wonderful question. And what I will share with you is a lot of this relates to that public-private partnership. Many times government brings people to the table, provides that initial funding to start the programs that are valuable, that create long-term changes and solutions. And so what I mean by that is here in the U.S., one of the examples that the U.S. government, that Congress passed and became law, was Commercial Crew in 2004, which allowed NASA to partner with commercial launch entities such as SpaceX, Blue Origin. That law, that legislation created that commercial launch enterprise that we're now seeing come to fruition. So it's taken 16 years. But that started with the right legislation. So it's important for legislators and governments to set the right policies to create the change they want to see in their economy. The other part with that public-private partnership is providing the seed funding to create the programs that will help drive the change. In the case with the launch vehicles, NASA was given the ability to provide seed funding to SpaceX and other commercial launch providers to grow their infrastructure and create that capability, which ultimately lowered the cost of launch and now created a huge marketplace for all industries. You know, it used to be very expensive to launch. Now academia can launch things. Students are launching canned satellites. So by lowering the cost of launch and commercializing that, we've now created more access and opportunity for all. But that's on your creating the ecosystem. Government also leads when it comes to creating the workforce, and that's creating the funding for initial programs. And again, we can start with public-private partnerships. Does governments come in with some of the initial funding to start pilot projects? One example is the program you specifically referenced about our entrepreneurial program. That initially was a program we started with the Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency. And we took an entrepreneurial program to break down the barriers and the perceptions to diversity and other underrepresented groups throughout the United States to show them that there was a pathway into the space ecosystem where they could become entrepreneurs, or if they were already entrepreneurs, how do they create another line of business in the space ecosystem. And we took that around the country. Initially, it was pre-COVID, so it was all done in person in partnerships with universities and industry. And then during COVID, we're actually doing a program with a company that is creating a more diversified supply chain, and we're now doing that virtual. So I share with you that government is a leader that comes to the table, that helps create that seed funding and the right policies, and the nonprofit organizations like Space Foundation and others, academia, and private sector economies will come to the table as well to help develop solutions that will drive the economic change and create the workforce opportunities that all of us want around the world. So I hope that helped answer the question. And the Space Foundation is happy to always be a partner at that table to come up with ideas on how we can create solutions to solve those challenges.
Thank you. We thank the Delegation of the U.S. for that question and your comprehensive answer, Ms. Brunswick. We now recognize the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago. Excellency.
Good afternoon, Excellency, distinguished Chair. Chair, the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago must again, as we did on the 31st of August, commend you for the excellent manner in which you have been chairing the proceedings of this committee. The topic today is riveting for all of us because it is one that addresses a real issue. And I must at the same time acknowledge the support that I'm sure you received from the Executive Secretary, Osborne, and her team. I must pause too to just acknowledge the excellent presentations from our distinguished panelists. They've been so insightful, instructive. I know Trinidad and Tobago will certainly draw on several of the lines for action and follow-up. And Chair, you'd recall that on the 31st of August, we did call for a network of our science, technology, innovation, entrepreneurship institutes in the hemisphere. Well, today, Chair, our delegation has a surprise. I will not attempt to ask any questions. We have, in fact, with us the president of our own National Institute of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, Mistress Marlene Lord-Lewis, another woman in STEM, in science and technology. And so I will now be pleased to offer the floor to her, and I'm sure that she is in a much better place to pose the questions, to really engage these distinguished and expert women who have presented here for us today. So please permit me now, Chair, to offer the floor to Mrs. Lord-Lewis, and she will comment and pose questions that she would consider appropriate for the discussion. Congratulations again, and thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Lord Lewis,
Thank you. We look forward to hearing from Mrs. Lord Lewis. Thank you.
Ambassador, I believe she needs to request the floor. I don't see her name on the request list.
In the interim, while we are getting Mrs. Lord Lewis connected, we will recognize the delegation of Mexico.
Muchas gracias.
Excellency, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. México otorga alta prioridad al compromiso de atender las demandas de las mujeres para que garanticen sus derechos y su bienestar y se avance en la eliminación de las brechas de desigualdad que erosionan sus vidas. Por ello, alienta el desarrollo de habilidades y capacidades en ciencia y tecnologías transformadoras en las mujeres, niñas y especialmente en poblaciones en situación de vulnerabilidad. México cuenta con el Programa Nacional para la Igualdad entre Mujeres y Hombres, que coloca en el centro de las prioridades de las mujeres y niñas históricamente relegadas, a fin de garantizar un acceso equitativo a los bienes, recursos y beneficios del desarrollo, particularmente en tiempos de COVID-19. En este sentido, mi delegación agradece cumplidamente las presentaciones de las especialistas sobre este tema. Respecto a la presentación de la doctora Savage, directora adjunta del Laboratorio de Innovación Cívica de la UNAM de México, destaco la valiosa colaboración que se ha logrado con las autoridades mexicanas, en particular con la Cancillería de mi país, en el empleo de inteligencia artificial en plataformas que ayudan a los mexicanos para apoyar en gran medida a los migrantes, que es una importante población en situación de vulnerabilidad. Al respecto, ¿podría explicarnos con mayor detalle por qué se utilizan asistentes virtuales, cómo interactúan estos con el usuario y si esto es factible usarlo, esta tecnología en otros países de la región? Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Bueno, voy a empezar a responder. Muchas gracias, embajadora. Es un gusto conocerla. Muchas gracias por el reconocimiento. La razón por la cual usamos los asistentes virtuales es debido a que consideramos que era un modo con el cual podíamos diseñar tecnología que se acercara a los ciudadanos. Consideramos que muchas veces los ciudadanos, cuando quieren hacer sus trámites de gobierno, no tienen mucho tiempo, están haciendo miles de cosas. Entonces consideramos, ok, ¿sabes qué? Vamos a sacar una tecnología con lo cual los ciudadanos, mientras están haciendo otras actividades, ellos van a poder responder e ir haciendo trámites de gobierno, por ejemplo, mientras van en el camión, y el asistente virtual permite que lo puedan hacer desde sus celulares, cosa que no podían ellos, desde sus celulares mientras están ocupados haciendo miles de otras cosas. Entonces, los asistentes virtuales permiten al ciudadano a estar haciendo este tipo de actividades, trámites de gobierno, mientras andan por su ciudad haciendo miles de cosas. Por otro lado, me parece muy interesante esto que menciona sobre, ¿se podría implementar en otras partes del mundo? Por supuesto que sí. Y la verdad nos encantaría mucho poder colaborar con otros países para poder empoderarlos para que también utilicen esta tecnología. Y efectivamente la Cancillería ha creado esta colaboración con la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México y ha permitido que un estudiante de la Cancillería desarrollando esta tecnología. Y realmente ambas instituciones se han nutrido. Y creo que es justamente, tenemos que pensar cómo crear este tipo de colaboraciones entre academia y gobierno. Y la verdad, un gran agradecimiento a la Cancillería por permitir este tipo de colaboraciones. Y también otra cosa que me gustaría rápidamente mencionar es que hemos trabajado muy de cerca también con los trabajadores que están en los call centers del gobierno. Y para nosotros es importante crear tecnología que empodere a estos trabajadores y no les quite su trabajo, sino que así ellos se pueden concentrar en tareas más creativas, más complejas, y le pueden delegar al asistente virtual las tareas que son más aburridas, más repetitivas. Por ejemplo, recibían muchas llamadas de personas que les decían, oye, ¿a qué hora abre la casilla para sacar mi pasaporte? Esta es una pregunta que un asistente virtual rápidamente le puede estar dando al ciudadano, y así ellos se pueden concentrar en tareas más complejas. Entonces creo que esa es una de las razones por las cuales el asistente virtual es muy útil. Y muchas gracias por su pregunta, y la verdad también es algo muy importante reconocer cómo el gobierno de México ahorita está impulsando una agenda hacia el bien social para incluir a mujeres y a personas, por ejemplo, de zonas rurales dentro de la tecnología. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. We're still trying to ascertain if the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago will be able to rejoin. Secretary Osborne, do we know from our technical persons?
Ambassador, no, not yet. I'm checking with Ambassador Philip Spencer to see whether.
Okay.
I believe
Yes.
he's requesting the floor.
Yes. Okay. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, we seem to have other technology talent. And I am unable to solve it at this moment. However, Chair, if you permit me to allow any other delegations that may wish to request the floor, or for the very engaging discussion that is ongoing with our panelists to continue, and be assured that we would seek to request the floor immediately as President Lord Host is ready to speak. Thank you. I look forward to joining the conversation.
Thank you. Well, this conversation will continue with the member states, given their specific input in terms of their own specific country needs, solutions, and offers for cooperation or innovative approaches. So for now, I want to just take this opportunity to say that with no other representative wishing to ask questions of our invited guests, I want to thank you all, Ms. Brunswick, Dr. Savage, Dr. Zimmer, for making the time out of your busy schedule to be here and participate in this meeting and sharing these most interesting and innovative programs with us. We look forward to your continued engagement with us here at the OAS and with all our member states. Thank you.
Thank you.
Obrigada, embaixadora. Parabéns a
Gracias.
Madam Chair, you have Ecuador on the list requesting.
Ecuador would wish to participate in this part of the dialogue, or with in the other section where I'm going to be inviting member states to speak about their specific country recommendations. Can we clarify? Ecuador, you have the floor.
Gracias, estimada Presidenta. No vamos a participar en las delegaciones, en la palabra de las delegaciones, señora Presidenta. Y una vez aprovecho agradecer a cada uno de los panelistas por tan importantes temas que nos han brindado, y pues también tomamos nota de aquellas exposiciones. Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you. And you can stay on. We'll call on you next. Thank you again, our special guests, and we appreciate your presentations today. Most interesting.
Thank you for the honorary to be joining me today, Ambassador and Executive Secretary. Thank you so much. We wish you a wonderful day, and we look forward to partnering with you and all our member countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador and Secretary. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Thank you. We now again recognize the delegation of Ecuador.
Señora Presidenta, señora Secretaria Oswald, muchísimas gracias por traer a la mesa este importante tema. Me permito, por favor, ceder la palabra a la directora de Investigación Científica, María José Ramírez, que dará sus opiniones en este tema. Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta.
Buenas tardes. No sé si se me escucha ahí. Buenas tardes, señora Presidenta. Buenas tardes con todos, con todas. Realmente tengo que felicitar esta iniciativa tan importante de hablar de estos temas que son tan sensibles, tan importantes en nuestra sociedad y que muchas veces parecen repetitivos, pero nunca van a dejar nunca van a ser repetitivos realmente, porque es muy necesario que siempre se topen este tipo de temas con relación a las mujeres y actividades que realizan y su implicación en la sociedad en general, no se diga en temas de ciencia. En todo caso, bueno, realmente en el Ecuador tengo que personalmente y obviamente a nivel general reconocer que todavía prevalecen problemáticas históricas que aún no han sido superadas, como la violencia contra las mujeres, la mortalidad materna, la maternidad en la adolescencia, la desigualdad laboral, la participación política aún está muy por debajo de la paridad de género. En el ámbito de la autonomía en la toma de decisiones todavía sigue siendo un campo donde la mujer tiene muy poca participación. La incorporación de la mujer a nivel social en la sociedad también es crítico. Sin embargo, ha habido avances importantes también que se tienen que considerar, tal vez no los satisfactorios, los que quisiéramos que se den. En este sentido, compartirles un poco la situación del Ecuador. Actualmente existen 1.272 carreras y programas de tercer y cuarto nivel relacionados al campo de la tecnología, de la información y de las comunicaciones, de las ciencias naturales, de las matemáticas, de la estadística, de la ingeniería. Y bueno, esto realmente ha aumentado, ha incrementado, como les repito, no de la forma en la que quisiéramos, porque esto es una constante lucha, como todos ustedes saben. Sin embargo, hay que reconocer que, aunque sea pequeños pasos, se está logrando la inclusión de la mujer en la sociedad y en estos temas. A nivel mundial, obviamente, persiste la brecha de género. Las mujeres representan el 28,4% de los investigadores. En el análisis, en la región, el tema de paridad y de equidad de género también es un tema muy complicado, precisamente por la violencia de género que implica muchas otras cosas, muchas otras condiciones, con el fin de lograr el acceso y la participación plena y equitativa en la ciencia de las mujeres y además lograr la igualdad de género. Desde CENESID hemos estado promoviendo varias políticas públicas enfocadas al acceso a la educación superior y a diferentes incentivos para que las mujeres participen en programas de investigación a nivel nacional. Sin embargo, existe mucha problemática, además del temas de presupuesto y ese tipo de cosas que también son lastimosamente un limitante para que las mujeres puedan incluirse más o facilitar más temas de inclusión social de la mujer en la comunidad. En todo caso, tenemos varios retos como institución para fortalecer y respaldar estos procesos de ciencia, tecnología e innovación enfocados directamente en las mujeres. Muchos de estos temas se han tratado a través de talleres, de eventos, de los que estamos inaugurando actualmente. Hacemos registro de investigadores donde también propiciamos la participación de las mujeres. Estamos en un proceso todavía de aprendizaje y de creación de estrategias para que esto pueda implementarse de mejor manera y en mayor cantidad. Quería agradecerles una vez más por la información que nos han brindado, porque esto contribuirá muchísimo a que nosotros podamos seguir fomentando políticas públicas que integren a la mujer en nuestro país como debería ser. Y espero que este tipo de espacios se den más seguido, aunque parecen a veces innecesarios, aunque parece que a veces solo se queda en una simple conferencia. Espero que esto realmente trascienda y nos pueda ayudar a todas y a todas, principalmente como mujeres, a implicarnos más en la ciencia y como institución a fomentar más este tipo de herramientas, a crear nuevas estrategias que logren una inclusión y una participación más amplia de la mujer en nuestra sociedad. Muchísimas gracias por el espacio.
Thank you. We thank the delegation of Ecuador and now recognize the delegation of Peru.
Presidenta, embajadora Audrey Mar, buenas tardes, señora secretaria ejecutiva Kim Osborne, colegas. Por parte del Perú quisiera expresar el enorme agradecimiento de mi delegación por el trabajo que viene realizando la Secretaría de la Presidencia en la elaboración de estas interesantísimas agendas que nos están sirviendo de mucha ayuda para dialogar de temas tan importantes alrededor de la ciencia y la tecnología y que van a ser muy útiles en la recuperación post-pandemia de nuestro país. Particularmente el tema que se viene abordando hoy en día nos toca muy de cerca. Quisiera, señora Presidenta, pedirle que pueda ceder el uso de la palabra al señor Marco Rinaldi, que es el coordinador del programa de políticas y popularización de ciencia y tecnología del CONCITEC Perú, para que nos pueda, con su granito de arena, brindar la imagen de lo que nuestro país viene haciendo en el tema. Muchas gracias. No sé si le podrían, a través de la plataforma, indicar. Yo ya le estoy indicando que pide el uso de la palabra. A ver. Sí, ya está ahí. Está en la lista.
These conferences, can we offer Mr. Rinaldi the floor, please?
Mr. Rinaldi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. Good afternoon from Lima, and thank you, Ms. Osborne. Gracias también a la señora Vázquez. Sí, el granito de arena que quisiera sumarles en esta oportunidad es, bueno, ante todo agradecer el espacio. Ha sido de verdad muy interesante, muy formativo escuchar las 3 presentaciones que nos anteceden y 3 experiencias que dejan muy en claro la importancia de seguir fomentando la ciencia, pero también la tecnología para la mejora de la vida de las personas. En mi caso, les quiero comentar 2 experiencias puntuales que venimos desarrollando en el Perú. en particular en el Consejo Nacional de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación, que es el ente rector en el país en temas de ciencia y tecnología. En el programa de popularización que coordino, tenemos un objetivo general que es promover la cultura científica a nivel nacional. Un objetivo seguramente muy ambicioso, pero también muy necesario, ¿no? Máxime en un contexto de pandemia como el actual. Paréntesis, hoy 28 de septiembre para nosotros es un día especialmente importante porque a nivel mundial se celebra el Día Internacional de la Cultura Científica. Así que feliz día a todas las personas presentes y por favor ayúdenos a seguir dando a conocer la importancia de generar cultura científica. Entre los objetivos específicos del programa de popularización tenemos uno en particular que es fomentar la vocación científica de niñas, niños, adolescentes y jóvenes peruanos. A pesar de que en el Perú las estadísticas en términos de acceso a carreras universitarias es muy parecido a lo que comentaba la colega ecuatoriana, nosotros tenemos experiencias que están resultando muy positivamente a nivel de la que aquí se llama educación básica regular, digamos educación primaria y secundaria. Las dos experiencias son, uno, los clubes de ciencia y tecnología y dos, las ferias escolares, particularmente la feria escolar denominada Eureka. En el caso de los clubes de ciencia y tecnología, estamos implementando esos espacios extracurriculares en los cuales miles de jóvenes a nivel nacional, niñas, niños y adolescentes, están participando a diario en la promoción de actividades de ciencia y tecnología. Lo están haciendo con un enfoque inclusivo, lo están haciendo con un enfoque STEAM, es decir, que además de trabajar alrededor de las áreas STEM relacionadas con la ciencia, están implementando también una lógica artística, creativa, lo cual implica que estamos ampliando la base de participación, la base de la pirámide en términos de participación. Bien, a la fecha tenemos casi 7.000 instituciones educativas a nivel nacional que han formalmente creado su club de ciencia y tecnología, y el dato muy positivo es que de los 70.000 estudiantes aproximadamente que conforman esos clubes, tenemos un 51% de mujeres, de niñas y adolescentes mujeres, y un 49% de varones. Estamos logrando, por lo tanto, no casualmente, no hay aquí la oportunidad de entrar en más detalles, pero digamos, no es un producto casual el hecho de que estemos logrando una sustantiva paridad, equidad en términos de acceso. Y para reforzar el mensaje que no estamos hablando de resultados casuales, en la otra iniciativa que les mencionaba, la Feria Eureka, que es el concurso escolar más importante a nivel nacional que se hace en el Perú, hablamos de 500 a 600.000 estudiantes que participan todos los años. Bien, en los últimos 10 años de este concurso de cientos de miles de estudiantes, en la etapa nacional, o sea, la última etapa del concurso, hemos logrado tener un 53% de finalistas, niñas y adolescentes, bueno, principalmente adolescentes, y un 47% de varones. Y eso a lo largo del tiempo es una estadística que se ha ido consolidando, es decir, no hemos tenido años del 100% solo hombres o 100% solo mujeres, o sea, tenemos números que demuestran que el camino de la inclusión en términos de participación a nivel de educación básica está funcionando bien, y esto nos motiva a seguir trabajando ahora de la educación básica a la educación superior, no solamente en términos de acceso, sino también de permanencia. Lo comentaba muy bien la embajadora en su inicio de cómo la pandemia ha golpeado especialmente a las mujeres a todos los niveles, desde los niveles laborales, pero también los niveles de estudio de educación superior, como de educación básica. Entonces, como CONCITEC estamos promoviendo condiciones de mayor y mejor inclusión entre hombres y mujeres. Por supuesto que es un camino de largo recorrido, pero creemos que desde la perspectiva actual las posibilidades son muy favorables. Muchas gracias.
We thank the delegation of Peru for your intervention. And let me acknowledge and thank Ambassador Solano for giving way to allow the delegation of Peru to complete their intervention. And I'll now ask Ambassador Solano of Costa Rica to take the floor. Excellency, you have it.
Muchísimas gracias, señora presidenta. Buenas tardes a todas y a todos. Costa Rica reitera su complacencia en abordar estos temas de gran relevancia para nosotros, enmarcados en la ciencia, la tecnología y la innovación. Agradezco a la señora presidenta por sus preguntas generadoras, así como a las distinguidas invitadas y panelistas por sus interesantes presentaciones, que expresan tanto los retos como las oportunidades que tenemos el día de hoy. Con un enfoque integral, poniendo a las personas siempre como el centro en las políticas públicas y teniendo como prioridades el talento humano, la innovación y el conocimiento, Costa Rica ha adoptado estrategias y programas nacionales para que todo niño, niña, adolescente y mujeres, especialmente las personas en condiciones de vulnerabilidad, desde la gran área metropolitana hasta las zonas más alejadas, democratizando así el acceso de la era digital y llevando el desarrollo a todos los rincones del país como nuestra meta y nuestro norte fundamental. Hoy deseo destacar la Política Nacional para la Igualdad entre las mujeres y los hombres en la ciencia, en la tecnología, las telecomunicaciones y la innovación, que hemos implementado para analizar las diferentes brechas de género en la producción, el uso y el acceso existentes a la ciencia y la tecnología, para divulgar los aportes de las mujeres en el sector, coordinar las diferentes instituciones y organizaciones o empresas interesadas en cerrar las brechas de género en el sector científico-tecnológico y ponerlos a trabajar juntos con este mismo fin. Además tenemos el programa de talento 4.0, laboratorios de innovación hacia una alfabetización digital para la sociedad y economía basadas en el conocimiento, que refleja la alineación de la política pública costarricense para el bienestar de su población más vulnerable. Con proyección en todo el territorio nacional, contribuye a cumplir la aspiración de contar con una población verdaderamente alfabetizada en el mundo digital, donde se reduzca al máximo la brecha digital, mediante laboratorios de innovación comunitaria, con perspectivas de género y con una visión de impulsar las capacidades para la empleabilidad y una cultura de innovación, especialmente en las pymes y emprendimiento con una visión territorial. Además, apoya el acceso de la recuperación post-COVID-19 y a construir resiliencias a largo plazo. Señora Presidenta, las políticas indicadas tienen como fin exclusivo crear espacios e iniciativas dirigidas a proteger a esas personas en condición de vulnerabilidad, cerrar esas brechas y reconstruir mejor. Debemos, como estados, ofrecer un abanico de oportunidades a esa niña, a esa adolescente, a esos jóvenes, para que logren desarrollar al máximo sus capacidades. En Costa Rica tenemos una historia de éxito que quisiera compartir con ustedes. Es el ejemplo de la señora Sandra Kaufman, que logró superar una serie de obstáculos desde una niñez muy humilde con muchos retos para lograr hacer una ingeniera eléctrica y física costarricense que se destaca por más de sus 30 años de trabajo en la NASA. Actualmente ella es la directora alterna de la División de las Ciencias Terrestres del Directorio de la División de Misiones Científicas en la sede central de la NASA aquí en Washington, D.C. Su perfil ha sido destacado por ONU Mujeres por ser un ejemplo positivo para las mujeres, especialmente las jóvenes y las niñas, pues durante los cursos lectivos, al inicio del curso lectivo en nuestro país, ella recorre los colegios científicos en Costa Rica para motivarlas a seleccionar o a permanecer en carreras científico-tecnológicas, compartiendo su historia de superación y explicando la alta demanda laboral que tienen estas ramas del conocimiento actualmente y en el futuro. Este es un ejemplo de influencia positiva, como las redes sociales usadas de manera constructiva y las alianzas público-privadas, con un enfoque también académico, que representan oportunidades accesibles y pueden ser coordinadas por los estados sin requerir una mayor inversión económica, más que un compromiso social y agentes de cambio para comprometerse con el futuro de las niñas, de las jóvenes y los adolescentes. Reiteramos nuestra disposición para compartir con la membresía estas y otras experiencias exitosas en materia de educación, emprendedurismo, ciencia, tecnología, que puedan ser de utilidad para nuestra región. Cerramos esta pequeña intervención agradeciéndole a CIDI su trabajo en el acompañamiento a los estados que tanto valoramos. Muchísimas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you. We thank the delegation of Costa Rica and now recognize the delegation of the United States.
Thank you so much, Chair, and we would like to, in particular, thank you for convening such a great panel today of all women who are making a critical difference on these issues. We also appreciate the opportunity to discuss this important issue for our hemisphere and have some really exciting initiatives to share today. As backdrop, the COVID-19 pandemic amplified the unequal burden of care work, often shouldered by women and girls. Women take on a disproportionate amount of care work compared to men, which is often unpaid and undervalued, and can further marginalize women living in poverty, women heads of household, and essential workers, among others. Yet the COVID-19 crisis demonstrates just how vital care work is. In the United States, we see an alarming number of women, approximately 2.5 million, exiting the labor market as they are forced to choose between employment and providing adequate care for loved ones. Vice President Harris called this trend a national emergency. Around the world, a similar exodus of women from the workforce, an increase in unpaid care is especially concerning for families with young children and from underserved communities, where mothers are more likely to be the sole or primary breadwinners and may face financial burdens for years to come. The economic value of unpaid care work is substantial and important for every economy in the world. There is no paid formal economy without the often unpaid, sometimes informal, and many times unseen care work of women. We must value care work for what it is, the foundation that holds our economies together. In addition to the disproportionate burden of care work that women shoulder, the COVID-19 pandemic has also exacerbated a range of other challenges women face in the labor market, including the gender digital divide during historic use of ICTs, lack of financial access and literacy, and underrepresentation and low engagement in policy. With this in mind, the United States is committed to increasing women's economic security and opportunities at home and abroad, and to partnering with governments, the private sector, and civil society to enhance protections and reduce the full range of barriers to facilitate women's meaningful participation in the global economy. This is why the United States proudly announced its intent to establish the Gender Equity and Equality Action Fund with a planned $100 million in fiscal year 2021 and a request of $200 million in the FY 2022 President's budget. This fund advances economic security for women and girls globally, prevents and responds to gender-based violence, supports underserved and marginalized populations, and helps address the disproportionate long-term impacts that COVID-19, climate change, outdated laws and regulations, conflict, and crisis have on women and girls. In addition to promoting the economic security of women and girls, the U.S. also acknowledges that women need to be active participants in all aspects of the global economy, including the digital economy. Women's roles in the digital economy start with bridging the gender digital divide once and for all. As we announced at the OAS Inter-American Dialogue of the high-level authorities of MSMEs in September, the United States has pledged $500,000 to the OAS Economically Empowered Women for Equitable and Resilient Societies project, with the goal of increasing women's participation in the digital economy and contributing to the region's economic recovery. This project will specifically target women-led MSMEs and provide them with capacity building, training, and tools to effectively function in the economy. build sustainable livelihoods, and increase their participation in policy making and leadership within their societies. In the case of another US-funded OAS program, the America's Competitiveness Exchange, or ACE, strives to foster equity and equality in all of its activities. ACE has supported and encouraged female participation in all of its iterations. Female participation in ACE has grown from 36% in the first 2 editions to 55% in its most recent iterations. In fact, 2 of the amazing women who just presented today during this agenda item participated in ACE Colorado this past August. So we're really excited to see them here as well. ACE focuses efforts on including women in their specialized panels on best practices and the retention of female talent in science, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. We are proud to see that ACE has influenced programs and initiatives in the region to empower women, such as RISE in Trinidad and Tobago and Sci Girls in Belize. Additionally, the work of CIDI reflects the importance the OAS gives to the theme of today's CIDI meeting. For example, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network, or ITEN, a US-funded initiative of the OAS, supports several teams that work to close the gender gap in STEM fields through pre-K through 12 education. For example, at the early childhood level, ITEN co-published with the Colombian Ministry of Education and Siemens Stiftung Foundation a guide that analyzes education policies and gender gaps in STEM fields and provides practical guidance to teachers in the region. Statistics provided by another US-funded initiative that focuses on small business development centers, or SBDCs, showed that women accounted for the majority of registered clients accessing the services of the SBDC. That is why the current phase of this project will build the capacity of women entrepreneurs to access local, regional, and international value chains, and will include seminars on business opportunity identification for women and youth entrepreneurs. In closing, as demonstrated through the various projects that I referenced today, initiatives and other forms of participation in which the U.S. engages, the Biden administration affirms that partnership and multi-stakeholder collaboration at home and around the world is foundational to helping women and girls access the connectivity and skills they need to thrive in and shape the economies of tomorrow. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you. Thank you for your valuable intervention on the initiatives from the United States. We now recognize the delegation of Canada.
My apologies, Chair. There appears to have been a slight technical difficulty there, but I'm reporting for duty. I would like to thank you so much, and good afternoon, Secretary Osborne. Good afternoon, Ambassador Marks. Thank you so much for convening a fruitful discussion, an engaging discussion. The new format is very much welcome. The panelists were incredibly enriching, and I'd also like to greet all of the distinguished delegates here this afternoon and thank them for sharing their national experiences on this important topic. Canada has endeavored to answer the 4 discussion questions that were put forward to us in the concept paper. We think it was a useful exercise, and so we'd like to share our thoughts along those lines. The first discussion question, Chair, that you asked us was, what are the key challenges for your country to close gender and inclusion gaps? Canada faces many of the same challenges described in the concept paper and by my colleagues in their remarks. Women are overrepresented in low-paying part-time occupations in Canada and are underrepresented in full-time high-paying ones. In particular, women are underrepresented in lucrative fields related to science and technology, like engineering and computer science. In occupations like software engineering and computer programming, women in Canada make up less than 1 in 7 workers. In addition to this, the pandemic is exacerbating inequalities, as many have mentioned today, including those experienced by Indigenous and visible minority communities, both in Canada and abroad. So we're asked the question then, what specific good practices or approaches has our country successfully implemented to advance the participation and leadership of women in STEM and education careers? So Canada has implemented a number of programs to reduce obstacles faced by, but not limited to, women, Indigenous peoples, people with disabilities, members of visible minorities, and members of the LGBTQ+ communities. These include a number of programs, and we're happy to share information on this and connect member states with the leads of these programs if that's at all helpful. But I'll mention just 3 right now. One is we have a Business Development Bank of Canada initiated a $200 million Women in Technology Venture Fund that has been quite successful. We also have launched a Dimensions, Equality, Diversion, and Inclusion project that recognizes post-secondary institutions for their progress in achieving equity and inclusion in their policies and research programs. So we're really trying to harness universities and get them engaged. And then we have what's called the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy Ecosystem Fund, which is investing $100 million in business support for organizations providing training, mentorship, and financial literacy to women entrepreneurs, much like what our presenter earlier today had shared with us about the importance of helping women learn to invest. So as mentioned, we'd be happy to provide additional details on these programs to member states and can facilitate contacts with responsible institutions in Canada if that's helpful. The third question you asked, and you asked 4, so we're halfway there, is what offers of cooperation or partnerships can we bring to the table for regional cooperation in this area? Well, it's very clear to us that gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls in all their diversity is at the center of our feminist international assistance policy, as well as Canada's COVID-19 response and recovery plans. Canada has also called on the global community to prioritize gender equality in their own recovery efforts. What this essentially means is that every single dollar of our international assistance is allocated and dispersed through the lens of how does this advance gender equality. So in particular, at the Generation Equality Forum just this past June 2021, Prime Minister Trudeau announced $180 million in new funding to advance gender equality around the world. In particular, $50 million of this funding is focused on the Global Partnership for Education to promote education and empowerment of girls and women in our eligible countries in our region. And these include Bolivia, Dominica, Grenada, Haiti, Honduras, Nicaragua, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Last but not least, what can we do within the context of the OAS CIDI to close the gender divide in science, technology, and innovation? So we have 4 specific points. Obviously, we think that in order to advance gender equality and close the gender wage gap in STEM, supporting women in the pursuit of quality, well-paying jobs in these fields is essential. So this meeting and getting us discussing this is a step in the right direction. We also recognize that developing programs that support underrepresented populations working in STEM helps increase well-paying jobs within the workforce. And we note the launch of the OAS's Women in Digital Economy project that the U.S. also just referenced. It's an excellent initiative, and we are still reviewing and assessing whether or not we can contribute to that as well. And, frankly, Ambassador, we wanted to mention that, Canada will continue to ensure that our mandates that govern the work of the OAS and the language that we spend so much time annually negotiating through resolutions reflects and entrenches the importance of a gender perspective in policies and programming in all the work we do. We believe that's important. It may not seem like a lot, but we are all sitting around the table negotiating these omnibus resolutions with the mandates that govern our work, and Canada will continue to ask that a gender perspective is included wherever we can, because it is that important to us, and we believe to other member states as well, as evidenced by this excellent meeting that you're convening today. And last but not least, we would advocate for using intersectional approaches at the OAS, like Gender-Based Analysis Plus. to support the development of inclusive initiatives. So we encourage the Secretariat to consider the implementation of the GBA Plus approach to programming. So in short, we hope that didn't take up too much time, but we tried to zone in on those 4 questions you asked us. And again, we thank you so much for the opportunity to share and to learn from others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. Your emphasis is noted and it is important. So we thank the delegation of Canada for that intervention. I now recognize the delegation Trinidad and Tobago. And before we bring on Mrs. Lord Lewis, we'll ask Ambassador Philip Spencer to take the floor. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. And Chair, I take the floor with much greater pleasure on this occasion because this time we've overcome the technological challenge, and so it's my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Marlene Lord Lewis, who is the President of the National Institute of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology of Trinidad and Tobago. That is the institute to which I referred on the 31st of August, and I look forward at some point to joining other member states in pursuing the call made by this delegation to create a network of our institutes. And it's therefore my pleasure now to offer the floor to Mrs. Lord Lewis. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and good afternoon to the meeting. Ambassador, Chair, and Executive Secretary, I want to take the opportunity to congratulate you on this meeting and indicate how excited we are to have been invited to share with you the work that NABIS has been doing, not only just in women and girls, but in fact, our 36-year-old, we're celebrating our 36th anniversary this year, in 2021. And we wanted to share with you the initiatives that we have been doing with regard to women and girls in science in particular, as well as other initiatives that have involved the regional collaboration. So we will put up our presentation and go through in the context of what the discussion is about this afternoon. We thought what we will do is look at some of the trends with regard to labor statistics under our Central Statistical Office. And our first slide, we're looking at labor force participation rates and unemployment rate. The information is not that different from what we expect, in that males recorded a higher labor force participation than females in all 3 quarters. And you will realize that the 3 quarters are the quarters that would have been influenced by the COVID-19 pandemic. In the second quarter of 2020, the male labor force participation was 64 compared to the females 47.1. So this is just setting the context. In the second quarter of 2020, again, the male unemployment rate increased to 5.1% compared to 3.5% in the fourth quarter of 2019, while females decreased from 5.9 to 5.2%. Our next slide, we looked at labor force by industrial group and gender. And the majority of women, you would note, were employed in 3 industrial groups: wholesale and retail trade, restaurants and hotels, 58.6%, community, social and personal services, 52.2%, and financing, insurance, real estate, and business services. Why is this important? It's important because during the pandemic, these are the areas that have been significantly affected in terms of staff reductions or persons who are not able to gain employment. In terms of occupational groups, we looked at the fact that female workers outnumber the males in the following occupational groups: clerks, 80.1%, technicians and associate professionals, 61.2%, professionals, 56.2%, legislators, senior officials, and managers, 52.3%, and service workers, 51.5%. So this recognizes the cluster of women by occupational groups. And during the presentations, we heard about empowerment of women And I have with me this afternoon Ms. Sharon Parmanan and Ms. Luvan Sukoville, who will share the presentation and look at the academic performance at the tertiary level. Sharon.
Good afternoon, everyone. A review on the academic performance at the tertiary level. The chart shows the academic performance from 3 state institutions, and what we can see is that female graduates outnumber the male graduates. In total, 68% of the graduates were females, while 32% were males. Also, we have at all fields of study, we also saw that the females outnumbered the males in all fields except engineering. And when we look at chart 4, again, the females outnumber the males at all degree levels. So at the first degree, master's and PhD, we also had females outnumbering the males. Our next slide, the map there shows the educational performance by districts, and the areas highlighted in red are the at-risk districts in the country. And we have the northeastern area and followed by the southeastern and Tobago. And these are the areas that score that students attempting 5 CSEC subjects inclusive of mathematics and English, they scored less than 50%. So less than 50% of the students were successful at attaining 5 CSEC subjects including mathematics and English. Also, the map doesn't show it, but if we further disaggregate that data by gender in each educational district, the males performed lower than the females. So we have at both tertiary and secondary level, the males performing lower than the females.
And we recognize from the work at NEHIS the following are the key challenges and opportunities to improve access of women and populations in vulnerable situations in science, technology, and innovation. Key challenges identified were limited resources and necessary infrastructures to allow them to experience the magic of science. We recognize there's a lack of societal role model scientists that look like them. And the collection of data and data-driven policies, particularly in STEM, were lacking. Inclusive would have been the robust monitoring evaluation frameworks to determine the success of those policies. Opportunities, however, would have been arousing the curiosity through science centers and other informal education programs, mentoring schemes, fully paid internships and scholarship programs, career events, which expose students and promote the discovery of new emerging and non-traditional paths in STEM. Also, an opportunity would be to showcase and highlight Caribbean success stories of women, girls, and vulnerable groups through digital platforms. NEHIS National Science Center aims to advance levels of scientific and technological literacy in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean by presenting knowledge and experiences of science and technology in the most palatable forms. It should be noted that our visitor stats show that our female visitorship is almost twice that of male. During the closure of our National Science Center due to the COVID-19 pandemic, NEHIS was also able to pivot its offerings, providing virtual and online science fairs, career events, innovation competition, camps and clubs. We were also able to continue our quarterly intellectual property clinics where we had IP professionals engage with persons virtually on intellectual property rights for their ideas, products, inventions, and innovations. We continued with our virtual Meet the Entrepreneur series, which provides insight and inspiration into the possibility of designing, creating, innovating, and problem solving through our Fab Lab facilities. Each year, NEHIS will partner with the U.S. Embassy to accept applications for scholarships to attend a National Youth Science Camp in Virginia of the USA, And this year we had 5 local students attend virtually, all of whom were female. NEHIS promotes the inclusion of women, girls, and vulnerable groups. And this year, under the patronage of the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, NEHIS collaborated with UNESCO and celebrated the International Day for Women and Girls in Science virtually. We join the global movement to inspire girls and young women through the annual commemoration of the International Girls in ICT Day. The NEHIS Teach Me project target audience are students from schools under academic watch, underrepresented and underserved students. And in 2021, we were able to host virtual events for this target audience, such as a National Schools Innovation Competition, STEM clubs, STEM career days with STEM professionals, as well as STEM camps. And under this Teach Me program, we announced a call for STEM professionals who had established careers in STEM, but who were born or who lived in underserved and underrepresented communities. Those individuals who studied in non-prestigious schools and despite circumstances managed to be successful in their field. Again, showcasing that those who look like them. The NEHIS Teach Me project also had the STEM Professional Day, which showcased their success stories in order to excite students interested in STEM subjects and STEM careers. And the Institute also launched an initiative in addressing and archiving our region's scientific heritage through a series of publications on icons in science, technology, and innovation, and launched a series called Caribbean Women in Science and Their Careers, which was circulated throughout the Caribbean in 2011. It documents and promotes public awareness of the contribution and often pioneering efforts of Caribbean women in various scientific-based and technological disciplines and professions. Therefore, again, showcasing the societal role model that young Caribbean girls can identify with.
So we heard the ambassador mention that in your meeting, there was a discussion around the establishment of a network across the regions of institutions and activities that focus on science, technology, and innovation. NEHIS is well recognized today as the national leader in science, technology, and innovation. What we have, if we're going forward, we must go back a bit to see where we have collaborated with the region and position ourselves really as a possible leader in the region when it comes to science, technology, and innovation. So we do have some, as Glovan mentioned, we developed icons which are a recognition of the experts who have performed across the region in science, technology, and innovation. We collaborated with Barbados, on the Shell and the German Embassy, the Shell and German Embassy in the development of Deep Sea Wonders, which is again a look at the Caribbean and the maritime industry. And the importance of this is an awareness and a knowledge of what we have in the Caribbean as it relates to STI. In terms of the NEHIS Annual Caribbean Youth Science Forum, this was funded by the various countries in the Caribbean, 14 countries, and this was funded by the countries which sees the involvement of youth, tertiary level youth in the Caribbean to look at projects and come together for the purpose of developing the awareness of science, technology, and innovation. One of the projects that we collaborated with the OAS, in fact, we did collaborate with the OAS on the Icons project, Caribbean Icons, was the Go Creative project. And we wanted to identify that these are some of the collaborations that we've had with the region and it supports the vision of the group, including the words of the ambassador, that we need to develop or re-establish a network of STI operators within the Caribbean. Why do we need that? We need to give the Caribbean a chance. We need to give the Caribbean a chance to be competitive with regard to development of 21st century skills. We need to give the Caribbean a chance to look at the fourth industrial revolution that speaks to technology, and in terms of future-proofing our workforce, collaboration within the Caribbean is critical towards that. Our final slide is a slide that speaks to the CIDI Technofest project. And what is CIDI Technofest? Of course, the name is explainable. It's science, technology, knowledge, a festival that focuses on that. And we have had several of these festivals over the years. This 2022 March represents the first virtual CIDI Technofest that we will be undergoing. The background to that, it was first held in 1997, and it has grown into the English-speaking Caribbean's biggest and most spectacular science festival, with an average of over 55,000 visitors over a 21-day period. So when we operated under a face-to-face operation, we would have exhibits and workshops and participation globally at a local location, which is Trinidad and Tobago. In this particular CIDI Technofest, we are now operating under a virtual arrangement, which allows wider participation. It allows a more cost-effective festival, and it is aimed to promote greater public awareness and understanding the impact on our everyday life and well-being, and its vital role in promoting economic prosperity, social progress, and environmental sustainability. Why economic prosperity? The festival focuses on attracting entrepreneurs, not just locally, that will come and display their processes, display their products, display how they are working on the green economy or the blue economy across this 5-day period. This is a 5-day period that we're having this year. The festivals over the years, though, have proven to contribute to public knowledge, engagement, and appreciation of STI. Science festivals, such as STKF, provide an opportunity to celebrate the wonders of STI and bring citizens together to celebrate STI and its importance in socio-economic development. I think this is a very good platform for us to present the CIDI Technofest, and we have heard a lot of presentations from the experts with regard to the role of women and the initiatives that are being developed for women and girls in science. We want to invite all to look at CIDI Technofest 2022 as an opportunity for us to advance the conversation that we are having here as a first step towards showcasing some of the products that have been described and some of the initiatives that have been described towards developing a stronger network of STI across the Caribbean. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lord Lewis. I'm sorry, the chair is having some technical difficulties, so she's trying to rejoin. And with the permission of member states, I would like to offer the floor to Chile, in absence of the chair. Oh, she's back. Thanks.
Thank you. It's on the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago, and in particular, Mrs. Lord Lewis, for her comprehensive presentation. And yes, we will now move to the delegation of Chile. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Intentaré ser lo más breve posible. Hoy en día la conectividad y las tecnologías de la información y la comunicación, las TIC, son herramientas habilitadoras del desarrollo económico y social de los países. así como para el ejercicio de derechos humanos como la educación, la salud o el derecho al trabajo. Igualmente, ante la pandemia mundial por COVID-19, la conectividad y las TIC han mostrado ser herramientas que ayudan al distanciamiento físico con la finalidad de reducir los contagios. Lo anterior, con apoyo de políticas públicas, de gobierno digital y las nuevas modalidades del trabajo a distancia. Sin embargo, existen personas que aún no cuentan con dichas herramientas que les permitan un mejor uso y aprovechamiento de las tecnologías de la información y comunicación, por lo que es necesario fortalecer acciones de reducción de la brecha digital. Desde hace años, Chile viene aplicando políticas que apuntan de lleno al fomento de la ciencia, la tecnología, la innovación y el emprendimiento como factores primordiales para promover la inclusión y la participación de mujeres, niñas y poblaciones en situación de vulnerabilidad, con mayores garantías de éxito en la sociedad y en la economía del conocimiento. La inclusión digital debe abordarse de manera multisectorial, como es el acceso a Internet y a equipos tecnológicos, generar habilidades digitales, crear confianza en el uso de las TIC y sobre todo, hacer posible que las personas puedan crear contenidos, emprendimientos y nuevas experiencias que atiendan las necesidades de todos los grupos de la población. Los centros tecnológicos, las universidades, el mundo de la empresa y también instancias multilaterales como la OEA, debemos reflexionar sobre cómo las redes ya existentes, los datos y los programas tecnológicos disponibles pueden perfilar líneas novedosas para promover la inclusión social, llegar a mercados aún no atendidos o ser mejores allí donde ya se está, así como generar alianzas comerciales o de transferencia tecnológica que permitan reducir las brechas de desigualdad. Para todo esto, invertir en educación es fundamental y rescatar talento es un deber ineludible. Debemos prepararnos para empleos de mayor calidad en un mundo distinto al que conocemos hoy. Las tecnologías de la información y las comunicaciones deben estar a disposición de quienes las necesiten y evitar nuevos espacios de desigualdad. La incertidumbre económica que está atravesando la región y el mundo es una oportunidad única para hacer los cambios que faciliten avanzar en la inclusión de las poblaciones más vulnerables. Para Chile, los focos transversales han sido el apoyo para una reactivación sostenible, el desarrollo tecnológico productivo y la participación de las mujeres en el mundo del trabajo. En cuanto a las conexiones de Internet, en Chile, con cifras a junio del año 2020, se observa que existe un gran porcentaje de conectividad móvil. De una población de 19.458.000 habitantes, un total de 19.370.000 cuentan con acceso a Internet móvil. Sin embargo, apenas 3.580.000 de ellos cuentan con acceso a Internet fijo a nivel nacional. Para fortalecer la brecha de conectividad, la Subsecretaría de Telecomunicaciones realiza diversas acciones para el despliegue de fibra óptica en todo el país. Algunos de estos proyectos son el proyecto de fibra óptica nacional y el proyecto de fibra óptica austral, con los cuales se espera aumentar considerablemente las cifras de Internet fijo, así como contar con una conexión asequible y de mejor calidad para la población chilena. Entre las principales brechas digitales detectadas en Chile, por grupo poblacional, con base en la información analizada, se observó que estas aparecen en los niños, niñas, adolescentes, mujeres, habitantes de zonas rurales y adultos mayores, personas con discapacidad e integrantes de pueblos indígenas. Chile cuenta con una amplia diversidad de políticas públicas encaminadas a fortalecer acciones de inclusión digital, tales como la Agenda Digital 2020, la Agenda Digital 2021, el Banco Integrado de Programas Sociales, el Plan Nacional de Lenguas Digitales y las iniciativas a cargo del Ministerio de la Mujer y Equidad de Género, entre otras. Estos programas fortalecen las acciones de conectividad a cargo de la Subsecretaría de Telecomunicaciones en rubros como creación de habilidades digitales y dotación de equipos de tecnología a diversos grupos poblacionales. Señora Presidenta, para finalizar, queremos hacer una mención a la importancia y pertinencia de traer esta temática al Consejo Interamericano para el Desarrollo Integral. La reunión de hoy y la forma en que se han tratado estos temas permite reafirmar la utilidad de abordarlos en el ámbito multilateral. Muchas gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you. We thank the delegation of Chile and now recognize the delegation of Panama.
Muchísimas gracias, señora Presidenta. Primeramente, la Delegación de Panamá desea agradecer y felicitar a su persona, destinar una reunión en este actual tema siendo su relevancia aún mayor tras el impacto negativo que ha tenido la pandemia del COVID-19 en el avance de la agenda que venimos impulsando para fomentar y alcanzar la paridad de género en todos los ámbitos. Asimismo, agradecemos las valiosas presentaciones realizadas por las 3 distinguidas panelistas, agradeciendo compartir sus experiencias y conocimientos y mostrarnos cómo ustedes son ejemplos de que el campo STEM y el mundo de las inversiones también son un ámbito de las mujeres y para las mujeres. Asimismo, damos gracias por los enriquecedores aportes e historias de éxito compartidos por los honorables autoridades y delegadas y delegados que me antecedieron. Coincidimos en la importancia y necesidad de que las mujeres y niñas accedan a estudios avanzados de ciencia y tecnología. No es suficiente que sean usuarias, beneficiarias de las tecnologías. También es necesario que sean parte de los procesos de diseño, aplicación, supervisión y evaluación. Sumado a esto, la pandemia del COVID-19 ha producido un retroceso, ha profundizado las desigualdades de género, incluyendo la subrepresentación de las mujeres en el campo de la ciencia, tecnología e innovación, y por ende su acceso a la economía digital, aumentando el tiempo estimado para cerrar la brecha de la paridad de género en el mundo. Sin embargo, de la misma manera, aceleró el desarrollo e implementación del comercio electrónico y otras formas de comercio digital, lo cual representa un sinnúmero de oportunidades en términos de fuentes de empleo e incidir positivamente en el avance hacia la autonomía económica de todas las mujeres. A nivel nacional, en el 2018 se realizó por primera vez el diagnóstico de género sobre la participación de las mujeres en la ciencia en Panamá, con el objetivo de conocer las principales razones que limitan la participación de la mitad de la población en este sector. El estudio arrojó como resultado la incidencia que continúan teniendo los estereotipos tradicionales y roles de género asignados en las posibilidades de que las mujeres sigan carreras en la ciencia, investigación, tecnología e innovación o en el mundo digital y desarrollen las aptitudes que necesitan en estas carreras. Este diagnóstico resaltó la necesidad de incluir la perspectiva de género en todos los planes y políticas que se desarrollan en este ámbito. Como punto de partida, entonces, se levantó la Estrategia Nacional para la Integración de Niñas y Jóvenes en las Disciplinas y Empleos STEM, bajo el entendimiento de que para derribar los estereotipos que obstaculizan el acceso de las mujeres a estas áreas, es indispensable trabajar con la niñez y la juventud, lo que actualmente el Gobierno Nacional está llevando a cabo. En este sentido, bajo el liderazgo de la Secretaría Nacional de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación de Panamá, CIDI, en alianza con otras instituciones, la academia y el sector privado, se han llevado a cabo varias iniciativas que por premura del tiempo mencionaré muy brevemente: convocatorias de estudio en STEM a nivel de pregrado y doctorado, así como convocatorias de emprendimiento con incentivos, retos virtuales de robótica con enfoque de género, desarrollo de campañas de visibilización de mujeres científicas en investigación y otros mecanismos e instrumentos para incentivar la calidad en mujeres investigadoras. Señora Presidenta, para finalizar, reconocemos el valioso trabajo que realiza la COMCIN, la Comisión Interamericana de Ciencia y Tecnología, articulada con la CIDI, para apoyar a los Estados miembros en nuestros desafíos en este tema estratégico, y reiteramos el compromiso de Panamá con el fin de mejorar el acceso y el liderazgo de las mujeres, niñas y poblaciones en situaciones de vulnerabilidad en los esfuerzos nacionales y regionales de ciencia, innovación, tecnología y emprendimiento. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. Thank the delegation of Panama for your input. We know that there are no other delegation requesting the floor. So I now wish to propose that CIDI, that the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development, CIDI instructs the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development to document and follow up on the collaboration opportunities with the partner institutions identified during the dialogue and in the interventions made by our delegations, by all delegations. Also, two, to call on member states to put forward their offers of cooperation and partnerships to complement the regional catalog of skills building opportunities to address existing gaps and inequalities on innovation, science, technology, and entrepreneurship in the Americas, and academia to support the development of an America's Youth Academy on transformative technologies, leading to the 6th REMSIT. If there are no objections, it is so decided. So decided. We now move to item 3. For the consideration of the next agenda item, referring to the Development Fund Corporation Fund, I'm pleased to offer the floor to Executive Secretary for Integral Development, Mrs. Kim Osborne. Mrs. Osborne, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador, and good afternoon again to distinguished delegates. Chair, in the interest of time, since we're running very tight on time, I will abbreviate my presentation. I believe that conferences was going to load it, but I will begin speaking all the same. Chair, as you know, as member states are aware, the programmatic cycle for the Development Corporation Fund was approved by the Management Board and for 2021 to 2024. Member states have chosen the area of focus as inclusive resilience for an effective recovery with a focus on science and technology. And so we will continue to work in a cross-cutting manner to effect programs. Programs are being implemented in 4 areas: retooling MSMEs through innovation and technology, innovative reskilling for the tourism sector recovery and regional economies, scientific and technological innovation for resilience building, science for decision making in disaster risk planning. And all of these are areas of critical importance for member states. The amount of funding approved, next slide please, for the, this is the correct one, for the programmatic cycle 2021 to 2024 is 1.7 million, and we know the criteria is here in terms of eligibility for participation and for evaluation of the fund. Next slide. In terms of the countries that are confirmed for participation, remember this is a pay-to-pay fund, and so only those who are up to date with payments can submit projects. And so under item area 1, retooling MSMEs through innovation and technology, we have the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Honduras, Jamaica, Panama, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Lucia. Innovative reskilling for the tourism sector and regional economies, Dominica, Guyana, and Uruguay. Scientific and technological innovation for building resilience, Argentina, Barbados, Costa Rica, and El Salvador. Science for decision making in disaster risk planning, Bahamas, and Peru. And we're still awaiting the confirmation of Nicaragua. And next slide. And just to give an idea to member states of some of the very interesting, innovative programs and projects that member states have put forward in response to COVID. I think what we're seeing coming out from all the capitals are very specific initiatives to address very specific needs that are time-bound, that are very targeted in terms of numbers of people that they're trying to reach. For example, in Panama, to improve the capacities of 300 tourism MSMEs, to develop new services, products, innovative processes with innovations, mechanisms, and post-pandemic tools. In Jamaica, 100 MSMEs adopting technological and non-technological tools to improve their competitiveness, market reach, and boost their economies. in St. Kitts Nevis and St. Lucia, really interesting and innovative projects, as in Honduras and the Dominican Republic as well. So what we're seeing is that while we are providing the seed funding within the context of the Development Cooperation Fund, what member states have done and what is encouraged under the fund is to use the seed funding and put it within the national context and to leverage the seed funding with funding that is coming from other national programs. So we're working in a complementary manner rather than the fund simply going alone. So the idea is to augment that which is already being developed in member states and that which we can attract additional partnerships to. And as we speak, the Secretariat will continue to reach out to other partners to see how they can complement the funding that has been given under the fund. Next slide. I won't go through all of the slides, but member states can have an idea of what is taking place in Dominica, Guyana, Uruguay. Again, very specific initiatives with regard to COVID-19 response and recovery. Next slide. So I won't, again, in the interest of time, I won't go through. So if we could just go to the next, simply to say where we are in the process. So next slide. In the process, we're now at the point of signing agreements and for implementation and the submission of the execution plan. Following that, we will have begin implementation, and 3 months following the signing of the agreements, we will expect the monitoring and evaluation plan. That is a very critical step in the process. As you know, we have to do a midterm evaluation. We do regular progress reports, and I'm very pleased to say that member states in the last 2 cycles have really stuck to the M&E plan in providing us updates and letting us know when they're not able to reach targets. So that's a critical piece in the work that we're doing within the context of the OAS. And we thank member states for their participation in the fund. I take this opportunity, Chair, to urge member states who have not contributed or have not been contributing to the fund to please consider contributing to the fund. I think what we're seeing is the high return on your investment. An investment into the fund is not one-to-one, it's one to, in some cases, 50, in some cases 5, in some cases 20. So we really have seen the value of the DCF in helping member states address specific national priorities. And so we want to encourage the participation. We've sent out the pledge letters and sent out the request for contributions. We're happy to provide member states with additional information, but we urge member states to please consider participating in the fund. I have received additional requests from member states, from capitals of several member states, and dare I say large member states, for participation in the fund. And I have had to say, sorry, you did not contribute, and as such, not able to participate. So I think it's critical for us to continue to resource this very essential mechanism that we have for funding programs and projects within the context of member states and within the region. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary, for that succinct but comprehensive and timely presentation. I now offer the floor to delegations who wish to refer to the program framework for the Development Cooperation Fund Cycle 2021 to 2024, approved by the Management Board of the Inter-American Agency for Cooperation and Development to finance programs within the context of the thematic area Inclusive Resilience for an Effective Recovery with a focus on science and technology. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Canada.
Thank you so much, Chair, and forgive my delegation if we somehow missed this, but could we request the Secretary to please circulate that presentation that Secretary Osborne just made? Thank you so much.
Thank you. We certainly will request the circulation of the presentation. We'll now recognize the delegation of Panama.
Muchísimas gracias, señora presidenta. Muy brevemente he solicitado la palabra para agradecer a todo el trabajo del equipo de la sección de cooperación, de nuestra secretaria ejecutiva, la señora Kim Osborne, en estos meses para avanzar muy rápidamente desde agosto, cuando la Junta Directiva aprobó el enfoque, hasta el momento en donde ya varios Estados miembros estamos iniciando la implementación. En este sentido, quería compartir con todos los Estados miembros y sus autoridades, pues que en el día de hoy nuestra vicecanciller de Relaciones Externas, su excelencia Daira Carrizo, en calidad de canciller, firmó el acuerdo de ejecución entre AMPIME, que va a ser el beneficiario ejecutor, con la OEA. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you for that intervention, Panama, and our congratulations on the signing. If there are no other representative who wishes to comment on the programmatic framework for the programming cycle 2021 to 2024 of the Development Cooperation Fund, I propose that we take note of the information shared by the Executive Secretary for Interrural Development. If there are no objections, it is so agreed. I take this opportunity to remind delegations that the contributions to the Development Cooperation Fund is now due. In support of our Executive Secretary that call, please remind your respective authorities. The DCF provides tremendous benefit to us as member states, and we must encourage all member states to make use of and to make their contributions, their voluntary contributions to the fund. Thank you. We now go to the next item on the agenda, refers to a proposed updated model for ministerial and high-level authorities meetings within the context of CIDI. To present the topic, I am pleased to offer the floor to the interim chair of the Committee on Partnership Development Policies, Ms. Laura Pizarro, alternate representative of Costa Rica. Ms. Pizarro, you have the floor.
Muy buenas tardes, señora presidenta, señores representantes, secretaria Osborne. Es un placer saludarlos en mi condición de presidenta interina de la Comisión de Políticas Solidarias para el Desarrollo, en ocasión de presentar el informe sobre las labores realizadas por la Comisión en atención al nuevo formato para las reuniones sectoriales a nivel ministerial del Consejo Interamericano para el Desarrollo Integral, propuesto por la Secretaria Ejecutiva para el Desarrollo Integral. Me permito reconocer el excelente trabajo realizado por el señor Joan Reed, representante alterno de Barbados, cuya misión ante la OEA concluyera en días recientes y que gracias a su manera ejecutiva de dirigir la presidencia de la Comisión, contamos hoy con el acuerdo sobre este tema. Le reiteramos al señor Reed éxitos en sus nuevas funciones. Señora Presidenta, el 17 de marzo del 2021, la Secretaría Ejecutiva para el Desarrollo Integral presentó ante la Comisión su evaluación del formato vigente para las reuniones sectoriales de nivel ministerial del CIDI. En este sentido, permítame recordar que en el contexto del desarrollo se celebran 12 reuniones sectoriales especializadas de alto nivel, 9 sectores que se desarrollan en el ámbito del CIDI, las cuales son trabajo, educación, ciencia y tecnología, cultura, turismo, desarrollo sostenible, desarrollo social, cooperación y puertos. Además, también contamos con 3 sectores en los que la CIDI actúa como una secretaría técnica, y en ellos tenemos competitividad, micro, pequeña y mediana empresa y energía. La evaluación realizada por la CIDI identificó 3 puntos de mejora inmediatos en el proceso vigente para las reuniones de nivel ministerial. La primera, el aumento de participación de ministros o altas autoridades, el aprovechamiento pleno del potencial de las reuniones para impulsar la cooperación regional sectorial, y como un tercer punto, la mayor alineación de las reuniones de nivel ministerial con las cumbres de las Américas, la Asamblea General y otros foros de alto nivel en el que participan los Estados miembros, por ejemplo, Naciones Unidas y agrupaciones regionales como SICA o CARICOM. La Comisión, manifestando su acuerdo con la evaluación realizada por CIDI, instaló un grupo de trabajo informal para considerar la propuesta presentada. Dicho grupo de trabajo se reunió los días 15 de abril y 22 de julio del 2021, además de intercambios de correos electrónicos entre los Estados miembros participantes del grupo para la discusión de los puntos y la revisión de lo presentado, contando con la permanente cooperación y asesoría de la CIDI. La CIDI, en respuesta a las deliberaciones realizadas por los Estados miembros, presentó la propuesta de modelo de actualización del formato de las reuniones ministeriales, teniendo como puntos clave la identificación y discusión en el CIDI de las prioridades sectoriales y la lista de acciones potenciales, el compromiso de los socios estratégicos desde una etapa temprana del proceso, la participación de la Agencia Interamericana para la Cooperación y el Desarrollo para atraer a las autoridades de cooperación y la elaboración de la guía de preparación de las ministeriales por parte del Comité Directivo. Señora Presidenta, el modelo de actualización presentado propone una secuencia de 11 acciones tendientes a conseguir un proceso eficiente e integrado, el cual es, punto 1, inicio del proceso de selección del tema, realizando discusiones técnicas, consultas y aportaciones de los socios estratégicos y de las instituciones con mandatos similares. El segundo, la aprobación del tema por parte del comité directivo que está compuesto por la Troika, los presidentes y los vicepresidentes de las comisiones interamericanas existentes. El tercer punto es la presentación del white paper o el libro blanco por parte de la Secretaría, basado en los debates con el comité directivo. Cuarto, la definición de la lista de propuestas y proyectos concretos por parte del CIDI y la obtención del apoyo de los Estados miembros. Una quinta acción sería la identificación del potencial de cooperación por parte de la Junta Directiva de la Agencia de Cooperación. Sexto, la Secretaría comparte la lista de propuestas con socios estratégicos para definir las posibles asociaciones. Séptimo, presentación del temario ministerial por parte del comité directivo. Una octava acción sería que la Secretaría preparara un proyecto del documento final que los Estados miembros examinarían en la reunión preparatoria virtual. El punto número 9, la celebración de la reunión ministerial, que contaría con un espacio de 2 días y de manera presencial, donde los ministros y socios estratégicos se reúnen para establecer contactos, registrar la política y anunciar ofertas de cooperación. El décimo, el desarrollo del plan de trabajo para implementar esas propuestas. Y como acción número 11 tendríamos la ejecución de las decisiones a cargo de los Estados miembros, la Secretaría y los socios estratégicos. Lo que busca esta actualización es incentivar el compromiso y la participación de los Estados miembros al más alto nivel, proporcionando además un foro para el diálogo sustantivo entre los Estados miembros, que identifiquen las prioridades regionales de interés y oportunidades de cooperación para el intercambio de experiencias y mejores prácticas en materia de elaboración y aplicación de políticas. De igual manera, se busca establecer la agenda de trabajo de la OEA para apoyar a los Estados miembros en el avance de dichas prioridades, alineando a la Agencia de Cooperación con los procesos ministeriales y el involucramiento del CIDI en la discusión, acción y cooperación sectorial sustantiva. En la reunión celebrada el 2 de septiembre del 2021, la Comisión de Políticas de Cooperación Solidaria para el Desarrollo acordó la propuesta de modelo de actualización presentado por la CIDI para ser expuesta en este momento ante el CIDI para su consideración y aprobación. Señora Presidenta, en nombre de la Comisión de Políticas, presento entonces acá el modelo acordado contenido en el documento CIDI/CPD/DOC 208/21 y la recomendación de que sea aprobado en el seno del CIDI. No omito manifestarle que de adoptarse esta recomendación es necesario revisar y actualizar los procesos, procedimientos y normas en vigencia para hacerlos congruentes con este modelo. Por ello, me permito sugerir respetuosamente que se instruya a la CIDI a realizar esta revisión y que presente sus propuestas para ser consideradas por los Estados miembros. Finalmente, señora Presidenta, se sugiere que dichas revisiones sean consideradas por la Comisión de Políticas a más tardar en el primer cuatrimestre del año 2022, incluyendo para estos efectos las observaciones realizadas tanto por Brasil y Panamá en nuestros momentos de revisión de este modelo y presentar sus conclusiones para la decisión del CIDI. Con ello, concluyo mi informe, señora Presidenta, y le agradezco nuevamente la oportunidad de dirigirme a este Consejo. Muchas gracias a todos los colegas, representantes de los Estados miembros que han participado activamente en la consideración de este tema, y desde luego a la señora Kim Osborne y su equipo por esta iniciativa y colaboración. A usted, señora Presidenta, muchísimas gracias por este espacio.
Thank you, Ms. Bizarre, for a comprehensive report. I now offer the floor to delegations who wish to comment on this agenda item. There are no representative who wishes to comment on the proposed model for ministerial and high-level authorities meetings on development. I propose that we proceed in approving it as considered and agreed upon by the Committee on Partnerships for Development and contained in document CD/CPD/DOC 208/21 revision 1. I further propose that CD instructs the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development to review and revise the corresponding process and procedure to commensurate with the approved new model and to present a proposal for consideration by the Committee on Partnership for Development Policies before submission to CD for approval. CD further instructs that the reviewing of changes and/or actualization required be completed by the 1st 2022. If there are no objections, it is so approved. Congratulations. I know a lot of heavy lifting went into making this change. Congratulations, Madam Secretary and team. We now move to the next item on the agenda, which refers to the mandate entrusted to CD by the General Assembly through Resolution AG/Res 2954 adopted in October 2020 to prepare a draft resolution entitled the Inter-American Business Charter. I invite the chair of the working group to inform us on the work's progress realized to date. The chair of the delegation of Colombia, you have the floor.
Could we ask the Department of Conferences to please give the floor to Colombia? Thank you.
Bien, muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Muchas gracias. Hemos tenido unos inconvenientes con la activación de los comandos de video y audio, pero confío que ya puedan escucharme y verme adecuadamente. Señora presidenta, muchas gracias. En desarrollo del calendario de reuniones mediante el cual se aspira a completar las negociaciones mandatadas por la resolución 2954 de 2020 de la Asamblea General, el grupo de trabajo para la elaboración del proyecto de Carta Empresarial Interamericana sostuvo sesiones los días 24 y 31 de agosto, así como los días 7, 14, 21 y 27 de septiembre. Durante las sesiones en mención, el grupo de trabajo concentró sus discusiones en la revisión de los 8 capítulos que integran la sección operativa del proyecto, identificando a la fecha acuerdo provisional en 33 párrafos y continuando sus discusiones en otros 7 párrafos, contemplando la posibilidad de fusionar algunos de ellos. Asimismo, en el proyecto de preámbulo, que contiene 16 párrafos provisionalmente acordados, continuamos con la discusión del párrafo 8 bis y la posible adecuación de 2 más, para asegurar total correspondencia con el lenguaje que eventualmente se acuerde en los textos pendientes de la sección resolutiva. El grupo de trabajo está inmerso, además, en la tarea de realizar una revisión integral del texto, con miras a asegurar un documento final coherente y comprensivo. Todas las discusiones referenciadas han tenido lugar bajo la premisa de que nada está acordado hasta que todo esté acordado, procurando simultáneamente lograr un uso eficiente del tiempo disponible. Agradecemos a todas las delegaciones y por su intermedio a las autoridades en las capitales por su activa participación en el proceso de negociación y por el espíritu de compromiso que ha permitido entablar una discusión animada y un diálogo respetuoso, franco y constructivo para la construcción progresiva de un texto de consenso. En el evento de concluir satisfactoriamente las negociaciones, el grupo de trabajo también abordaría la redacción de un posible proyecto de resolución a presentar ante este Consejo, acompañado del respectivo informe final. La próxima sesión se ha previsto para el lunes 4 de octubre. Quisiera reiterar a la Secretaría Ejecutiva de Desarrollo Integral los agradecimientos por el apoyo logístico y temático constante que ha facilitado el cabal cumplimiento de las tareas asignadas al grupo de trabajo. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much. We thank the delegation of Colombia for the report presented. I now offer the floor to delegations who wish to refer to this issue. We now recognize the delegation of Brazil.
Gostaríamos de reconhecer o trabalho desempenhado pela presidência, pelo Gustavo pessoalmente, na condução dessa negociação, a qual esperamos que resulte em um texto consensuado já para a Assembleia Geral deste ano, para a 51ª Assembleia Geral. Esperamos poder apoiar o texto que está sendo negociado. E muito obrigado e novamente parabéns à condução pela Colômbia. Obrigado.
We thank the delegation of Brazil for that input, and if there is no other representative wishing to speak, I propose to take note of the information shared by the chair of the CIDI working group to prepare the draft Inter-American Business Charter on the work that they have been able to carry out to date. There being no objections, it is so agreed. Agreed. Item 4. The next item on the order of business refers to the 15th Inter-American Congress of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Tourism. This 25th Inter-American Congress of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Tourism, scheduled to take place virtually on October 6, 2021. Colleagues, to comply with Article 14 of the Rules of Procedures for Sectoral Ministerial Meetings of CIDI, we will now proceed with establishing the order of precedence for delegations of member states and permanent observers. Delegations are reminded that, as outlined in Article 2 of the same Rules of Procedure, the principal representative of the delegations that are next in the order of precedence established in Article 14 of these Rules of Procedure shall serve ex officio as vice chairs of the ministerial and or high-level meeting, and shall replace the chair in the event of the latter's absence or impediment. In accordance with Article 14 of the aforementioned rules, the order of precedence of the delegations for each meeting shall be established in alphabetical order in Spanish by the corresponding regular or special meeting of CIDI, once the first place has been drawn by lot. The order of precedence of the prominent observers shall be established in the same manner. Secretariat, please proceed to draw the first name for member states.
Con mucho gusto, señora Presidenta. Trinidad and Tobago.
Could you please repeat?
Trinidad and Tobago.
The first place among member states is Trinidad and Tobago. Please, Secretary, proceed with the draw the first name for permanent representatives. Permanent observers.
France, Ambassador.
The first place amongst permanent observers is France. Thank you. Preliminary list of observers and invited guests. The next item refers to the preliminary list of observers and invited guests to the 25th Inter-American Congress of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Tourism. A preliminary list was prepared by the Secretariat and distributed as document CD/Doc 322/21, Revision 1. In compliance with Articles 17 and 18 of the Rules of Procedure for Sectoral Ministerial Meetings of CIDI, the preliminary list requires the authorization of this meeting. I therefore submit the preliminary list for your consideration. I offer the floor to delegations who wish to refer to document CD/Doc 322/21. If there are no representatives who would like to comment on the preliminary list of observers and invited guests to the 25th Inter-American Congress of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Tourism as contained in document CD/Doc 322/21, I propose that it be approved and that the Secretariat be instructed to proceed with the corresponding invitations. If there are no objections, it is so approved. Approved. The next Inter-American meeting to refer to during today's meeting is a third specialized CIDI meeting of high-level authorities of corporation, scheduled to take place virtually December 2nd and 3rd, 2021. Colleagues, in preparation for the upcoming meeting of authorities of corporation, The preliminary draft agenda is being considered and developed within the Management Board of the Inter-American Agency for Cooperation and Development. As per Article 8 of the Rules of Procedure for CIDI sectoral meetings at the ministerial level, the preliminary draft annotated agenda will be prepared by the Technical Secretariat based on the deliberations of the Management Board. Therefore, document CD/Doc 323/21, preliminary draft agenda, is presented today for information purposes. In an effort to secure the highest level of participation from member states and the private sector and other relevant parties at this meeting, the Secretariat has prepared and submitted a preliminary list of observers and special guests for the third specialized CIDI meeting of high-level authorities of cooperation, as contained in document CD/Doc 325/21. In compliance with Articles 17 and 18 of the Rules of Procedure for sectoral ministerial meetings of CIDI, the preliminary list requires the authorization of this body. I therefore submit a preliminary list for your consideration. I offer the floor to the delegations who wish to refer to document CD/Doc 325/21. If there is no other representative, or there are no representatives, if there are no representatives who wish to comment on the preliminary list of observers and invited guests to the third specialized CIDI meeting of high-level authorities of cooperation, as contained in CD/Doc 325/21, I propose that it be approved and that the Secretary be instructed to proceed with the corresponding invitations. If there are no objections, it is so approved. The last Inter-American CIDI meeting to be considered today is the 9th meeting of the Inter-American Committee on Education. I'm pleased to offer the floor to representative of Antigua and Barbuda to refer to this item. The delegation of Antigua and Barbuda will have the floor.
Good. Sorry about that. Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to you and to distinguished colleagues. Madam Chair, cognizant of the time restraints, I will be as brief as possible. Madam Chair, I wish to refer to the preparation for the holding of the 9th regular meeting of the Inter-American Committee on Education that has been advanced by the members of the Inter-American Committee on Education and its chair, the Honorable Darrell Matthew, Minister of Education of Antigua and Barbuda. Madam Chair, allow me to share with this Council that in the dialogues on public policies and programmatic actions that have taken place in the midst of a global health crisis that involved the massive closures of educational centers, the educational authorities have expressed the commitment that education is a right of all people and an inescapable commitment of the state. In times of necessary and imperative changes, the decisions on our educational systems have had a noticeable impact on their functions, and it is our belief that the future actions that will be agreed during the next meeting to be held by the Inter-American Committee on Education will mark an important course. Madam Chair, it is in this vein that the Secretariat has indicated its desire of having additional time to complete the work prior to the meeting. Works that have been affected by the changes imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic and that have prevented compliance with current regulations for the meetings of the Inter-American Committee. I refer specifically to Article 12 of the Rules of Procedure for the Inter-American Committee of CIDI, which states that preliminary annotated draft agenda of the meeting must be submitted to CIDI at least 2 months prior to the meeting, and after the presentation, member states are allowed to 30 days to submit their comments. Therefore, Madam Chair, distinguished representatives, my delegation on behalf of the Chair of the Inter-American Committee on Education requests that the date of the 9th regular meeting be changed so that it can be held virtually on November 18th and 19th, 2021. to change the dates if the member states so agree. We submit for your consideration the draft resolution contained in document CD/Doc327/21. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
We thank the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda for your presentation. Having been made aware of the circumstances that prompted the request to reschedule the 9th meeting of the Inter-American Committee on Education, I submit for your consideration the draft resolution contained in document CD/Doc327/21 to change the date of the 9th meeting of the Inter-American Committee on Education to now take place virtually on November 18th and 19th, 2021. I offer the floor to delegations who wish to refer to document CD/Doc327/21. If there are no representative who wishes to comment on the draft resolution as contained in document CD/Doc327/21, I propose that it be approved and the 9th meeting of the Inter-American Committee on Education be held virtually November 18th and 19th, 2021. If there are no objections, it is so approved. Preliminary draft annotated agenda. As mandated by Article 12 of the Rules of Procedure for the Inter-American Committees of CIDI, the Secretariat, in coordination with the Inter-American Committee of Education and its chair, have prepared the annotated preliminary draft agenda, distributed as document CD/Doc326/21. In that regard, as established by the aforementioned rules, member states shall have 30 calendar days from to date to send their observations to the Secretariat so that a new version of the preliminary draft agenda can be prepared and submitted to CIDI for approval. Therefore, I propose that the deadline for member states to submit their inputs be set for October 28th, 2021. If there are no objections, it is so approved. We now move to item 5, other matters. I now offer the floor to any delegation wishing to bring any other matter to the attention of the Council. Since there are no other matters to consider, I thank you all for your active participation and kind cooperation and your patience. We had a very productive meeting, even though it was a little bit long today. It was most enjoyable, and I thank you all for staying with us and your full participation. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Ambassador.
My pleasure.